I am curious. People may not know this, but you do not swear.
I do not. It depends on your definition of swearing, but there are certain words I say that people would consider a swear word, but most of the classic swear words,
the classics,
I don't and have never said, not even once.
So I am curious as to why this is, or what is your reasoning behind this?
There is no there kind of is no reasoning.
Uh-huh.
Like the reason I don't do it now is it's a bit like an unbeaten streak.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So it'll be a bit like, say, like, my wife will sometimes say, "Go on, just say, whatever word." She'll say the word. Go on, just say it just once for me, because she swears a bit, and so she would find it funny if I swore. And I'm just like, no, I don't want to do it, because once I do it, like, I can't. I've lost the streak of having never said that word. So,
I mean, when you say never, you mean never from childhood, never?
Yeah, I was probably a good boy and told not to swear when I was young, and I was quite.
And you just listened?
Yeah, and my mum was a formidable person, so I would not do something that she didn't want me to do. And of all the things most things I was told not to do as a little boy, I then did eventually. But that's just one that I didn't, and I still don't. So I don't swear. There are some words, like I said, there are some words that would be classified as a swear word that I will say.
Yeah. The swear words are remarkably ambiguous.
Yeah.
Even as I discovered when making podcasts, Apple has a requirement that you label a podcast explicit if certain words are spoken.
Yeah.
But there is no official list anywhere. You just leave it up to you to decide what the words are.
Well, this is actually quite a funny thing that's happened to me that I we should probably talk about this too then. That I have recently had issues with comments on videos where I've decided that I've had enough of people being abusive to my contributors and doing inappropriate things. So I started vetting comments. But there is a mechanism on YouTube where you can create a blacklist of words that come to you for vetting, and the other comments go through. So I've been doing a bit of testing of that to see whether or not that will help nip some of these problems in the bud. So I'll let comments go on, but if words on this list appear, they'll come to me first just to tick to make sure they're not being used in a way they shouldn't be used, some racist or offensive or abusive stuff. So as a result of doing that, I'm having to keep a list of words which I'm constantly adding to. And as I look at comments and look at the way that people can be abusive and the things they say when they're abusive, I will try and pluck out the key words from that and add them to this list so I can come up with this uber list of, watchwords or flagged words. Unacceptable words. Some of them can be unacceptable in strange ways and could be very specific to the people in the videos as well. So I have got this list. I've just called it up now. And I can't read it to you because half the words on it are words I wouldn't say. But I've got this funny list that if anyone ever walks past my computer, and I've got them on a sticky note at the moment, one of those Apple sticky notes. If anyone ever calls up my sticky notes, I've got this one sticky note off to the side, which is just this stream of every rude word you could think of.
I like this.
Interlinked with other strange words like, masseuse or something, because some people were making some masseuse comments that were inappropriate or a few other words. So, it's an interesting.
The person who does not swear has a constant visual reminder of all of the bad words.
Yeah, and is like copying and pasting this list everywhere and reading it all the time. And so,
I guess I still feel a little bit unsatisfied with your answer though. Is it entirely just the streak? You don't want to break the streak? I feel that can't be the whole reason.
Do you know what? I'm really struggling to answer that. Not for lack of, not out of any kind of cautiousness or privacy. It's just, I think for a lot of people, swear words are just words they say when they can't think of something better to say. But that doesn't mean I think I'm too clever to swear. And in fact, sometimes a well-used swear word is very funny. And I sometimes wish I had some of those words in my arsenal when I was making a joke because it could add a certain amount of impact or funniness. But so there is a part of me that thinks swearing is like unnecessary because I can usually think of what I want to say without swearing. Mm. But I can't really answer it. You know, I think I'm fairly kind of moral and, you know.
Do you think it is immoral to swear?
No, I don't think it's immoral to swear. All of my friends swear, and I think well-used swear words are funny. I'm never offended by other people swearing at all.
This is what I'm wondering. I am sometimes suddenly self-conscious around you if we meet up.
You hardly ever swear. You're a very light swearer.
Really? I feel like I swear more than I would like to.
No.
But
you swear so infrequently that when you swear, I even notice that you swore. That's how.
So you do notice. So I should feel.
Yeah, but I don't notice. But I don't notice when a lot of my other friends swear because they swear all the time. But you do it so infrequently that it's like, oh yeah, Gray does swear. That's right. There's no. I can't. I think it really is just the streak. I think it is just like it's like a novelty. Like
what happens when you really hurt yourself, though? You know, if you drop a hammer on your toe.
That's not. Those words never occur to me to say. Like, people always say that. I can't believe when you hurt yourself, you don't swear. Well, it's like, well, that never. I'm much more likely to say gee whiz or golly or just because they're the words that come. They're the words that automatically come to me. I don't think swear words are like ingrained in our DNA. So I don't think it's like the natural thing to do. I think it's I think swear words are a learned thing. And because I haven't learned it, I don't do it. But I don't have a problem with it. I don't know. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal to me in any way. And for me, it's just like it's like a novelty now.
Okay. So I wanted to ask precisely because, as I said, I do feel uncomfortable sometimes when we're talking, and if I swear, I'm suddenly aware of, oh, right, he's the guy who doesn't swear.
No.
It might be in your head, you have a little moral checklist, and you go, no, put a little X next to my name.
And trust me, I have many, many vices that are worse than swearing. And now this just got interesting. Okay, enough with the swearing. I'm not interested anymore. What is your worst vice? No, I mean, like, I think swearing is not a big deal. I don't encourage it, and I wouldn't encourage, like, you know, a child to start swearing. But I'm quite neutral. I'm not like, you know, some really goody two-shoes person who thinks swearing's a bad thing. I just happen to not do it. Just like I think lawn bowls is a perfectly legitimate sport, but I just don't play it myself. Mm-hmm. Although I would watch it on TV. I don't mind watching a bit of lawn bowls.
Sounds really exciting. Sounds really exciting. Okay, all right. I guess that's the end of my interview. I was just curious.
Well done. That was hard. That was hard hitting, mate.
Yeah,
I see a few.
Tell me your worst vice, and then you just blow off the question. And I didn't get an answer.
Well, I mean, you know, there are some questions that people just aren't going to answer. But you know, you brought it back when you weren't happy with the answer the first time.
What was the worst vice that you'd be willing to admit on, say, a podcast?
Well, the one I was thinking of when I said that was eating badly. I would happily start swearing if it meant I was able to have the self-control to not eat rubbish food.
That is a boring vice. Thumbs down. I want a different vice. Gluttony. Yeah, that's not interesting.
Well, what other vices? I can be quite lazy and I can procrastinate.
Not impressed. When we're off the air, I want to hear about the worst vice that you.
Well, what's the worst vice you'd admit to on air, Mr. Secrecy, who won't even tell us what's on his checklist?
I don't know. I think maybe it's a problem with the word vice. I don't know.
I mean, I've got a huge cocaine problem.
That's what I want to hear. That is exactly what I'm interested in. All right, now let's talk about this. I like this.
Oh, I didn't really think of that as a vice, but if you want to hear about that,
yeah, that's my interest. No, I don't know. Anyway, all right.
What's your worst vice?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I think I am suddenly realizing that this is a problem with the word vice. Because I think everyone can be kind of lazy and unproductive, and those are the things that I would often say I dislike about myself the most. Is when I'm not being optimally productive about stuff. But is that a vice? I don't know if that's a vice, or I don't know. Maybe I can end up sometimes playing video games longer than I should. That's kind of a gluttony vice. I don't know. I don't do cocaine though. So
no, I don't either.
Yeah, you wanted to clear that up just in case people were thinking that was really
just in case this is tendered as evidence. I do not do drugs. Do you know I've never even smoked a cigarette?
Oh, look at you! Yeah,
have you ever smoked a cigarette?
I am shockingly boring in this way. I have never done any illegal drugs, and I have never smoked a cigarette. And
no.
I always feel like the risk-reward scenario on that was never profitable. So I was going to say also, I was never cool enough in high school to be involved with the kids who were doing drugs. So
yeah,
that also certainly helps.
Yeah. You were asking all the time. They just wouldn't give them to you.
Yeah. It's like, well, book, I guess you and me are going to be hanging out again today at the library. And yeah. Not a lot of underage drinking and smoking cigarettes and doing blow at the library, where I spent a lot of my time.
And your parents were like really worried about you. I'm really worried about him, He's just, all he's doing is reading all day. He's not doing drugs. He's not hanging out with the cool kids.
Yeah. That actually always was, and always was my parents' concern, is he's just not socializing enough.
Why don't you go out and do some drugs?
Yeah. We can feel a lot better if you were more popular, but getting into more trouble. But yeah, so no, it's just shockingly boring.
Well, we're boring guys.
We are boring guys.
Yeah,
that is the bottom line.
I think the fact we've been talking for an hour and 45 minutes and we haven't even talked about anything yet is a good indication of that.
We have to talk about something. Do you want to talk about monkey copyright?
Let's talk about monkey copyright.
Okay.
All right.
Fine. Let's pick something that's not some follow-up so we can at least have one thing to talk about. I want to talk about monkey copyright.
I did enjoy our little after-school special Say No to Drugs section there, though, and don't swear.
Yeah. I'm not exactly sure that was the conclusion to draw, but it was more like boring people don't do these things.
It was more kind of us regretting not doing drugs more than...
Only I was cooler.
Tell me about monkey copyright. You know the guy at the centre of this story you're about to tell actually lives in my little patch of England here.
Does he?
I guess I'm showing a bit of parochialness there because I guess lots of people live in London, and every time some big, like when there's a story about the Prime Minister on TV, you don't go, ha, he lives in the same city as me. This is my local news sort of background shining through, that if someone is in an international story and they're from like my patch of the world, it's suddenly a more important story.
If you ever look up a place on Wikipedia, you always know that the place is not a place when the Wikipedia article about it has a section that is entitled Notable People From. Right? I'm always really aware of that, because basically any place that is a place doesn't have a notable people from San Francisco. Right? They don't include that because there's 1 billion people from San Francisco. Like if you have to enumerate the people from your place, it's not a notable place.
You are a big snob.
Am I a big snob? I'm just saying
that's really snobby.
I think that's just true. If a place is a real huge place, you can't possibly list all the notable people from it. Just because there are millions of people.
What a ridiculous thing to say.
What do you mean?
What an absolutely ridiculous thing to say.
I think it's a truism.
Are you saying that the town of Grantham in Lincolnshire is not a place? Is that what you're saying?
What is Grantham?
It's the town that Margaret Thatcher came from.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Grantham.
But it's not a place according to you. It doesn't exist.
I'm looking it up. Notable people.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it doesn't exist.
You said it's not a place.
Let me try to refine my thinking about it.
To sound less snobby.
No. I guess what I mean is let me try to put this a little better.
Oh man, I'm going to look up Adelaide.
Notable people. I like it. At the very top of the list, they have a serial killer from Grantham who beats out Margaret Thatcher.
Nice.
Beverly Atlett, serial killer from Grantham.
No, never heard of her.
English serial killer who convicted of murdering 4 children and attempting to murder 3 others, causing grievous bodily harm to a further 6 children. Beats out Margaret Thatcher.
There you go. I'm just looking at Adelaide, where I'm from. They don't. Okay. It doesn't have a notable people.
Okay. Oh, it says Isaac Newton is from Grantham. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. This is my
also beaten out by the serial killer.
Yeah. Well, so, it's Atlas. She's at the top of the list. Okay. This is my feeling about the notable people section on Wikipedia.
Mm-hmm.
Its purpose seems to build up the place that it is describing, but for me, it has the exact opposite effect. It diminishes the place by feeling the need to list the notable people that come from it. I think that is the more articulate version of the feeling that it gives me.
That is fair enough. And a little bit less. That makes you sound a little bit less. I live in London and nowhere else matters.
Yeah, but I'm not from London. I guess that's the feeling that I have about this. I don't mean it in a snobbish way. I just think that section always seems to do the opposite of what it is intending to do. That by the very fact of saying, look at all the notable people from this place, in my mind, it makes me feel like that place is less notable, not more notable.
Okay, I understand the logic of what you're saying. I see another side to that. I do see another side to that as well. But like where it could say, despite not having the advantage of a huge swarming population, we still have produced people that are able to make it on the world stage. So I think it's saying, look, we are indeed small, but we still pack a punch. Which you could then argue, well, that's something only a small puppy would say. But
yeah, and always with these notable people sections, what I'm really curious about is how many of these notable people lived in that place, as opposed to how many of them were born there and then left after high school, and then all of the notable things came later. That's what I would really like, is a notable people who also spent their entire life in this place section. I think it's a little weird that a place gets to lay claim to somebody because they happen to pop into existence in this location and maybe didn't spend a whole lot of time there. But anyway, it's a whole separate issue. We were supposed to be talking about monkey copyright, and then you infuriated me somehow, I think, is what happened there.
Sorry, let's go back to... Oh, yeah, that's right. I told you that the guy at the center of monkey copyright was from, like, not even from the town I'm from, just from this section of England that is covered by my local news.
So, do you know the guy's name off the top of your head?
No, I don't.
I had pulled up... I tried to be prepared, and I'd pulled up some links before, and I seem to have lost all of them. Oh no, wait, are they on my other webpage? Okay, great. Okay, so I tried to prepare a little bit, and so here we go. So for those unaware, the basic story is this guy, David Slater, who is a nature photographer, in 2011 went to Indonesia, and he was there to do wildlife photography.
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting thing that happened is when he was there, basically some monkeys handled his camera equipment and ended up taking pictures of themselves with his camera.
Like monkey selfies, basically.
Yeah, it's a monkey selfie, and
they're great pictures. They're amazing. Like,
I have to say, the one picture that this is really primarily about, I'll put a link to in the show notes. People should definitely look. It is an amazing photograph that this monkey took of himself. He has a smile. He has these striking red eyes. It is just a really striking photograph. And the guy has a few more on his website, but it's about one photograph in particular. They are just amazing. But the question about this is, does the photographer, David Slater, own the copyright to this image or not?
Mm.
And I saw this happen in 2011 when the story first broke and a bunch of newspapers were posting it, primarily just looking at this amazing photograph, this monkey selfie, basically. Yeah. It's a cute photograph. But what has happened is this has escalated, which is that it is actually going to court because Wikipedia is contending the photographer's claim that the copyright belongs to him.
Because Wikipedia, it's become like a Wikipedia picture on Wikimedia, hasn't it? Yeah.
So it's on Wikimedia Commons, which is a resource that I use all the time to try and find public domain and certain kinds of Creative Commons images. And they list it on Wikipedia as being able to be used. Now, the funny version of this story, which I'm going to say almost certainly a whole bunch of times throughout this, but is not really true, the headline in newspapers, who don't care to fact check things, is that the argument is that the monkey owns the copyright to the picture because he took his own picture.
Yeah.
And like you will see this headline in careless newspapers who are uninterested in the truth and are more interested in selling newspapers. The actual argument is that the photograph is public domain because there is no author of the photograph. That's really what it is.
You were a bit guilty of this headline when we started the talk as well, didn't you? You said, let's talk about monkey copyright.
Yep, that's exactly right. But also, I am not a newspaper.
No.
And I also, straight up, this is not true, but I'm still going to talk about monkey copyright because I am tickled by the notion of a monkey owning the copyright to an image. I think this is a fascinating question about what is the copyright of this image? Does it go to the photographer, or does it go to the monkey, or does it go to nobody? You seem like you're familiar with the story. Do you have any initial thoughts about this? Do you think the monkey gets the copyright? Nobody gets the copyright? He gets the copyright? What do you think?
I think he should get the copyright.
Mm-hmm. And why do you think that?
Don't know. Just feels right.
Just feels right.
What happened? He left the monkey picked up the camera. Like, he didn't intend for the monkey to pick up the camera, did he? The monkey just did it, or was he trying to trick the monkey into doing it because he thought it would be a cool picture? I'm not 100% clear, but from what I've read, it reads like he just left it unattended and the monkey just played. I mean, if he tried to trick the monkey into doing it and thought this would be classic and, and did a certain behavior a number of times hoping the monkey would copy it, then I definitely think the copyright is his. If the monkey just picked it up of its own volition, he didn't intend or expect it to happen, I think it becomes a grayer area. I'm calling on my extensive studying of copyright law here.
Yes.
But my underlying, just gut feeling is that it should belong to him. Because I feel like it should belong to someone. And if it's going to belong to anyone, or it has to belong to a human, it should belong to him. But why that's the case, I can't answer. Maybe it's not the case. I don't know. What's your feeling on it?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I was trying to pull up his webpage, and I have what is currently his webpage now, but you can also go to the Wayback Machine, and he's changed the wording on his website about the situation. It originally is not really described very well. But then there are newspaper reports of him talking about leaving the camera equipment around, and then the monkey takes the picture.
Yeah. And
then the current description is I don't think he's doing this necessarily on purpose, but it's a bit ambiguous as to what happens. But it sounds much more like he was intentionally leaving the equipment around for the monkey to take the picture.
Now, I can certainly see how that story would help his case.
Right. But it's funny because the impression that I get is that this story gained ground in the first place with the monkey selfie version of it.
Yeah.
And then it becomes a legal problem. And now there is this description, which is of him taking a much more active role. And I think both of those things can be true. It can be true to describe it as a monkey selfie. And it can also be true that he set it up so that the monkeys could take selfies. But I'm not saying that he's changing his story or
no.
Anything. It's just
either way,
what details are relevant.
Do you think either circumstance changes the copyright situation of the picture? Like I said, maybe it would.
So it's funny because what this makes me think of is my wife and I used to be very avid photographers and kind of competitive about it. We did a couple road trips across America, and we would often compete to get the better photograph.
Yeah.
And
I think that's very natural when couples, I think, to think that they're the master photographer and the other ones.
Yeah. And my wife is definitely the master photographer here. And I was always hugely frustrated because I would take 10,000 photographs to try to get one good photograph. And then she would just casually oh, this looks good. Click. Right. And one perfect, beautiful photograph needs no retouching. So she was always just great about it.
Yeah.
But we had a rule that the copyright belongs to the person's camera. So if she uses my camera, the copyright for that image is mine, and if I use her camera, the copyright is hers. Because sometimes we would just grab stuff.
Was that to avoid arguments later over who took the picture?
That's exactly it.
Right.
So this is the only reasonable rule even if it doesn't strictly make sense, we just have to lay this down as a couple.
How good are your photos that you're having? Like, as it's just a bidding war every time you guys take a photo or something?
No, it's not that good. But you have to lay down the rules. We need to make it clear about what happens with the photographs. Don't all couples lay down really clear rules about these things? So anyway, so this is the question of we went with the copyright resides with the equipment
for different reasons, but okay.
for different reasons. But I think this is just so interesting. And
it is.
My gut reaction, just the fun reaction, is I want the monkey to have the copyright to this image. That's just great. I love the idea about this. Why are we being so human centric with this notion that only humans can have copyrights to their works? Cannot the monkey own the copyright to his selfie? Do not the whales own the copyright to their music? It seems like we shouldn't be so human-centric in these things. But if I was a judge and I was sitting down and saying like, okay, everybody, we have to be serious about this now.
Yeah.
What is the situation? I would say that the same thing, that taking this guy's description at his word, he set up a scenario under which this might occur. And so he should own the copyright to the image, even if he was not the one pressing the shutter.
What if, not even this case, just what if someone had their camera picked up and just taken by the monkey, like a tourist had their iPhone snatched and it took a picture? Do you think that's different and that person wouldn't then own the copyright?
Yeah, well, this is why it's such a difficult thing. I don't know, and I actually saw this happen once at the London Zoo. They have this big open area where you can walk in the center, and there's a whole bunch of monkeys. And this was a few years ago, and they have these big signs everywhere saying, "Don't take out your phones or your cameras. The monkeys love to steal them." And I saw some tourist took out their phone to take a picture of these little adorable monkeys, and he just swung down from the tree and grabbed it and ran off with delight at his new toy.
And animals are people forget animals are fast.
Oh, man.
Until an animal does something you don't expect it to do, you don't realize they're a bit quicker than us.
Yes, that's exactly it. Humans, we have no advantages to living in nature. And, a monkey, you're never going to catch that monkey in a million years.
But you're also never going to see it coming. You think, oh, well, if a monkey makes a move for my camera, I'll just pull it away and it won't.
No.
But they're so quick. Your reaction times are so slow.
Yeah, it's like the monkeys in Gibraltar. If you go on YouTube, you can find a million hilarious clips of the monkeys pickpocketing everybody. And apparently the only reason they do it is because it is funny. Like, this is how the monkeys pass their time, is they know that it's a big reaction out of people and they just love it. So monkeys, nothing but trouble.
But good photographers.
So yeah, here's the thing. If you go with a situation where the copyright resides with the equipment, there's an interesting problem with that, which is talking about, okay, well, does that mean when people use photo booths that the photo booth owns the copyright to the image? Like the company that set up a photo booth, they actually own the copyright to images taken inside a photo booth. I think there's some weird situations about having copyright reside with equipment that is used. And here's the scenario that I think of as the most interesting version. Imagine this was not a monkey. Imagine that this guy was reaching some uncontacted peoples. So in Brazil, there are uncontacted human tribes. If this whole scenario happened, but he was just with a tribe that had no experience with technology and so had no expectation of what a camera does and does basically what these monkeys did, which was looking at their reflection in the lens and pressing the buttons. I think if it's an uncontacted person, that human should get the copyright to the image, even if the photographer is setting up the whole situation so that it would happen.
Yeah.
Even if the person doesn't have any idea, like a monkey, what's going to happen when they press the button, they should have the copyright to this. So I find copyright residing with equipment problematic.
Do you know, it reminds me of a story that I've known for many years, but I now look at it in a whole new light because of what we've just been talking about. And that is a guy I used to work with in Australia was and still is one of the world's best cricket photographers, photographing games of cricket. He's excellent. He's like, he is the best in the world, in my opinion. And he used to, at cricket matches, he would have his camera and go and sit in all the different places around the ground where he thought he would get the best angles and the best sports shots. But he would also set up a second camera at the top of a grandstand looking down and he would fix it on a tripod and set it at the part of the ground where the batsman was, where the action was most likely to happen. Kind of like home plate for you in baseball. He would have just a good shot of home plate, the cricket equivalent. And he would get like a trainee photographer to sit there with it so it didn't get stolen or, and didn't get knocked over or anything like that. But he had like a remote control to take the pictures. And the trainee wasn't allowed to touch it, because I always think, why not just get the trainee to do it? Good practice, and, they can tell when something amazing's happening. But wherever he was around the ground, doing his own pictures and his own things from all his favourite angles, when something happened, like a big wicket or a big interesting thing happened, he would just press this remote button and it would fire off 10 shots really quickly. I always thought that was because he just trusted his knowledge of the game and his knowing, his feel for when this is a good moment to photograph. So, and he didn't trust the trainee. He thought the trainee would miss the magic moment because he didn't read the game as well. I now realize this was purely a copyright thing.
Yeah, although I wonder, I mean, this is so strange, but you get work for contract or work for hire situations where people are producing artwork, but the copyright, goes to a company.
Oh, yes. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But there are also plenty of really weird situations with that where even trying to lock down something as a work for hire, you can run into all sorts of weird problems. So I wouldn't be surprised if the trainee actually did have some kind of work for hire contract, but even still, he just wanted to doubly make sure that he had like an ironclad, this is my work, it's not your work argument.
Yeah.
I can't help but notice as I'm looking at this monkey page, I have these 3 monkey pictures staring at me. He describes what the situation is with the monkeys, and then below he says, it is a totally humbling and almost beyond my ability to write here, experience. So we have humbling used on this monkey copyright page.
Excellent.
I just caught my eye there, but
it probably is humbling if you're a professional photographer and a monkey does a better job than you do. That's probably a proper use of humbling.
It might be, although he has plenty of other dramatic monkey photos. This guy is clearly no slouch with the wildlife photography.
Although he is complaining that he's really crying poor on this. Like, I read an interview with him and he's saying, I haven't got a lot of money and I need the money from this picture. So he's, but anyway, it's an interesting argument. And I do sympathize with him. If I through luck or circumstance, the thing is, these guys, these photographers spend all their life waiting for a lucky moment, because that's when that makes or breaks your career in photography. A lot of the time, it's just that one lucky moment. And he had that one lucky moment, and now it's been snatched from him. Maybe rightly, but he's that one career defining moment for him, and he's not cashing in.
Yeah, the wildlife photography in particular is basically a kind of lottery that a lottery that you pay with in time, and you hope to get one winning image out of.
Yeah.
But yes. Anyway, I think it is an interesting story. I am very curious as to how this is going to work its way out in the end. And this is also where I happen to be working on something which, even though I don't really want to, it involves copyright and fair use. And the frustrating thing with copyright law, and why it is an endless topic of conversation, is that there are no hard and fast rules. Ultimately, all this stuff has to be decided by a court somewhere on each individual case. And so a judge, I'm not exactly sure where the legal disagreement is taking place, but a judge somewhere is going to have to rule on, is this a public domain image or is this his image? And I will be very curious to see which way that goes. So, monkey copyright. I hope the monkey gets the copyright. Not really. I hope he gets it.
So, I remember when we were about to record the first episode of Series 1, I said to you, should we introduce ourselves and say who we are, in case people have no idea who we are, which is incredibly likely. And you said no, and you made a very compelling case for not introducing ourselves in episode 1. So we didn't. And now, at episode 19, you're saying we should introduce ourselves.
I am, but I have a reason for that, which is today we have been featured on the iTunes store. So there is a greater likelihood that there are people who are listening to this episode as their first episode who really have no idea who we are, who just clicked on a gray hi button at the top of iTunes and are listening for the first time, hello, welcome if that's you.
Hello.
So I think that this is a good chance to maybe do a little bit of an introduction, I guess. How would you describe your job to people? What is it that you do, Brady?
No, I'm not falling for that. When you said that we had to introduce ourselves, I specifically said that you have to go first.
I was trying to cut you off there. I was trying to get rid of whatever your plan is.
No. There is no plan. There is just I just don't want to sit and either talk about myself for like 25 minutes and then have you say, I'm great, I make YouTube videos. Or I don't want to talk about myself for like 8 seconds and then have you talk for 3 hours about, what your childhood was like. So I want you to set the tone so I know what to do.
Okay. All right.
Tell me, who are you? Do you come here often?
Yes, I do come to this corner of the internet quite often. I am CGP Grey, and I guess the most concise way to describe what I do now for a living is that I make informative YouTube videos that people watch. I guess that's the way I would describe what I do, but I always find it a little bit strange trying to describe what it is that I do. And I find it very awkward in some social situations sometimes. So that's kind of why I actually want to know, how do you handle this situation? What is it that you do? Describe your job for me now, like I'm a person who doesn't know you at all.
If it's a stranger, like someone cutting my hair or something, and they ask what I do, I usually say, I make YouTube videos, because everyone knows what YouTube is. And then if they ask, what kind of YouTube videos, I say, kind of sciencey, educational ones. Sometimes they're about maths or chemistry and stuff. Sometimes they're just about cool stuff. And then, I don't know, I kind of see where it goes from there. But I just say I make YouTube videos, and people don't really care what other people do. People just want to talk about themselves. So I just give them the bare minimum. And if they really care, they can ask more questions. And then, like anyone, I'll talk about myself forever if they want me to. I remember I was going through US customs not that long ago. And I like going through US customs because they always, like immigration, I should say, because they always ask you like lots of questions about yourself because like they have to. And it's really nice. Like, they're like, what do you do? I make YouTube videos. Oh, what kind of videos? And they ask like where you've been and what you're doing in the country. And they're like, they seem really interested.
Yeah, but they're not like your buddies.
It feels like that sometimes. And then it all ends very abruptly. They're like, okay. And they just hand your passport back and shoo you away. But recently I was going through, and this guy was like, what do you do? Oh, I make YouTube videos. And then he was like, is it hard putting like videos on YouTube? And I'm like, no, it's pretty easy. And then he started asking me all these technical questions, and then he asked me about like GoPro cameras, and it turns out he was really into like kayaking. And then he got his iPhone out. This is at the desk at immigration. He got his iPhone out and started showing me all his kayaking videos and asked me for like tips on how he was filming them and what he should do to put them on YouTube. And we were like buddies by the end of that. I'm sure the people behind in the queue were pretty cheesed off, but I must have been there for a good 5-10 minutes just watching videos on his iPhone.
Again, we are so different. I would find that both incredibly awkward and slightly terrifying. I always want to get through that customs gate as fast as possible. Let me on the other side of this gate. The only when I'm on the airplane side, I'm not on the you're in the countryside. I feel like there's only one good outcome here, which is walking through the gate. And there are many ways this can go wrong if the customs guy doesn't like you, or if they just, they're bored and they want to send you to the special room right for interrogation. I don't like the situation at all. And if the guy was talking to me for a very long time, I would just assume that he was stalling while the big beefy guys with guns are going to come out and take me away to some other place. That's what I would assume.
To the special room.
That's exactly it. No one's ever stopped me to show kayaking videos on their phone. These people are never chit-chatty. The only thing I can assume is they're just stalling. So I would be very nervous. I would be very sweaty and twitchy at a point like that. And then, of course, they would feel the need to interrogate me because you'd want to know.
This is why I love talking to you, because I always think I'm a really paranoid, worrying person. And then I talk to you and I realize I'm pretty chilled.
I don't think that is paranoid and worrying. I think that is the appropriate response to the situation of going through customs. Many bad things and only one good thing can come out in that situation.
The only time I was a little bit worried going into the US was not that long ago. I made a video about how, like, mathematically how the NSA was cracking into people's emails. It was just about like the mathematics behind it. There was no political agenda. It was just a geeky video. But that was the first time it occurred to me, maybe making that video has put my name on some watch list. And next time I go to the counter, they're just going to say, no, we don't want troublemakers like you here. You're like, you're not patriotic or anything. And they were going to, but nothing happened. Getting back to what you do. So when you say I make these informative videos, where does the conversation usually go from there?
Well, I'm realizing that I might be taking the wrong strategy here because I, in person, don't really like to talk about what I do. I feel like I would much rather move past this part of the conversation. And maybe it's just like the customs situation. Maybe people can sense that because it seems to me that people are always very interested in what I do. And I end up trying to give vague answers or answers that are sort of true, but not exactly true, and then trying to move the conversation right along. But then people are much more interested. The way I would actually describe it right now, I make informative YouTube videos for a living. That's kind of what I do.
That makes it sound like you make like safety videos, like what should you do in an earthquake, or how should you brush your teeth and things like that. I don't want to big you up or anything, but I think your videos are a bit better than that.
They are a bit better than that, maybe, but less helpful than that. I would say my videos are definitely less helpful than that. I'm not conveying any useful advice.
Yeah.
I guess usually my videos are about, I don't know, geography, I guess, is a large part of what my videos are about, but they're not on any particular set topic. They're just sort of explaining something that I think is interesting and that I hope other people will think are interesting. So,
I mean, you couldn't do this because it would sound too much like bragging. But if I was you, if I was describing what you do, I would probably add a few words to your description. I would say, "Oh, great, he makes like quirky YouTube videos about, trivial but fun things." You need to get words like quirky and trivia in there to make it sound less like something that's worthy or something you have to watch at a workshop at your new job.
Yeah, I guess it's funny as we're doing this little section here now. I realize I've never been in a situation where I really want to big up what I do. I haven't really given any public presentations or anything about what I'm doing, so I haven't needed to write a formal interview. Like I said, most of the time I find myself at like social gatherings just trying to avoid the issue, which, as you mentioned, people like to talk about themselves. And my usual trick for getting around this, in a conversation with somebody else, go for as long as you possibly can without asking the other person what it is they do. And it's surprisingly hard to do this, but I use this to my advantage in social situations where I don't really want to talk about my job. And so I will refuse to ask what the other person does for a living, forcing them to make the first move. So they say, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" And then I can kind of stumble through a terrible explanation that doesn't hopefully sound very interesting, and then immediately end with, "And what do you do for a living?" And hopefully that avoids any follow-up questions. And often that works.
Why do you not want to tell people what you do? You do a good thing and you're successful at it.
It's strange working on the internet. Like, I feel like I'm a relatively private person. And then when you do something that is on the internet in public that everybody can see, it sometimes leads to strange situations. So I had a couple of times when I was starting in my YouTube career and I was much more upfront about, "Oh, what do you do?" "Oh, I make YouTube videos for a living." There were a couple of, "Well, let's gather everybody around the computer and watch your YouTube videos right now," situations. And that I find just horrifyingly awkward. I dodged a bullet at a family reunion once with that. There was let's gather all of these people who you don't know anything about yet. You've just walked in the door, but there are going to be maybe 30 people who want to watch now what you do for a living on the screen. And we're all going to then talk about, like, it's so uncomfortable, something like that. So that's one of the reasons why I think I've toned down necessarily talking about what I do with people that I don't know. It's like, I don't want this to be "Oh, really? Tell me your website. Let me look at your work life." It's very, very strange, I think, being working on the internet where everybody can see what you do. It feels strange sometimes. So that's kind of why I avoid it. But don't you have that sometimes? Do people ask to see? your YouTube videos?
No, I mean, by then I've probably already shown them about 5 videos of my greyhound, so they're probably sick. They're sick of watching videos by then.
See, I think maybe I should try adopting your strategy, which is to sound really into my own job, and then people won't want to hear about it at all. Yeah. If you go, oh, let me show you some of my videos, people will be like, oh, wait, let me get a refill on my drink first, right, and wander off to the kitchen, and then they won't want to see it all. Maybe that's a better strategy. I might want to try that.
I have got one photo on my phone that I have like in a folder that I can get to quickly because it comes in really handy when you have to talk about your work, because the problem is your work does sound, your work can sound a bit boring and geeky when you start talking about science and, I make things about chemicals and mathematics and that. So
you make videos with explosions.
Yeah, that's true. But the picture I keep on my phone is when we went and filmed inside the Bank of England gold bullion vault, and the professor and I are standing in front of like all the billions and billions of pounds worth of gold. So I say, oh yeah, I do videos like about the elements in chemistry and things, and people are like, oh, like, how can you make that interesting? And then I pull out the picture and go, look at this. Tell me that's not interesting.
You've got it all queued up on your phone. You're ready to just flash it right in their face.
I wouldn't say I have it queued up, but and it's only if the conversation gets to a certain level of interrogation that I pull out the photo in my defense. But that I certainly wouldn't show someone one of my videos at a party. I think that would be a bit pretty dull for them. But I find the photo handy.
One of the other things is that it's weird running a podcast, because on this podcast, one of the things that we often talk about is our work lives. And so I do have this forum, in a sense, where I talk quite publicly about what I do, or the behind the scenes of how videos went, or what I was thinking about when making them. And you do the same thing. You talk about some stories behind your work. So we have this Hello Internet podcast, which is sometimes about work. Sometimes it's about nothing very much at all. Sometimes we're just following up on things that have happened before.
We do seem to spend a lot of time talking about flags these days.
Well, that was just one episode.
Well, no, two episodes. I think it's happened in now.
It was an episode and just some follow up, but that wasn't a real episode. We have to do some more flags in the future. But yes, I think for new listeners who have made it thus far, if you haven't,
if you've made it this far, you probably haven't figured out where the stop button is.
Yeah, it's quite possible. The show is called Hello Internet. It is a little bit, I think of it as like a conversation with the listeners. We talk about stuff, and then we read all the comments and the feedback, and there's a very active forum where people participate, and it's very much a back and forth with the audience. But I do think the little bit of a running joke is that the show is really should be called Two Dudes Talking, subtitle, it's not waffling, it's an amazing amount of content. So sometimes we do wander on a little bit, but we do sometimes get to the actual topics of the show. But that's what this podcast is, I guess. I don't know. How would you describe this podcast? I feel like I just did a terrible job.
I think, I don't know. It's just two guys who make YouTube videos talking, but not necessarily about YouTube videos all the time.
True.
You remind me of a great story that it's probably long enough ago now that I can risk telling it.
Uh-huh.
And all of the people involved, including myself and my mates, are now high enough up food chains that we can risk the story getting out.
Okay. But, I'm intrigued.
When I first started as a cadet journalist on a newspaper, one of every 3 months we would change roles. So you would get 3 months of doing, getting to be like a news reporter with the police reporters, and 3 months of, in the business section writing business stories and things like that. But there were also 3 month stints where you did really crummy jobs that just had to be done by the mule, and because you're a cadet journalist, that was your thing. And one of them was reformatting the TV guide. We would be sent from the TV stations, like their programs of what shows were on at what times, for like the TV magazine that was inserted in the newspaper every week. And we had to go through it and make it all the correct style. Like the time of the show had to be in bold, and the rating of the show, whether it was suitable for children, and that had to be in italics. And it was a really, really menial, boring job. And it was a week-long job. You would usually by Friday, you would finish reformatting the TV program so it could be printed in the paper. So anyway, this mate of mine, who was pretty clever with computers, there were kind of, algorithms that this crude computer system could run, but no one really knew how they worked. Mm-hmm. They at least think they were called memory keys, and you could press a key and it would run a quick script. Mm-hmm. And he figured out a way to completely automate this job. So you would just have the program get scanned in and all the text was there, and he could just press one or two of these memory keys and it would automatically identify the times and make them bold, and the sort of thing that people can easily do now. Mm-hmm. But at the time, longer than 10, 15 years ago, this was cutting edge. But it was kept a secret that we had figured out how to do this.
Yeah, fools.
It was like when your 3-month stint came to do the TV programs, you were like Harry Potter being given his Marauder's map. You were taken aside and told, you are not to tell anyone that we have cracked this, but all you have to do on Monday morning is press that number, and the rest of the week is yours to do with as you please.
Oh, that is great.
And they would go to the movies or play table tennis games, and it became this secret passed among, and it was a great example of automation completely making a job redundant. But we kept the fact that our job had been made redundant a secret.
Yes,
from the bosses. So I'm sure that job is now redundant, but it was good times.
That's good, and it's funny because I have run across a number of examples of computer programmers who have told similar tales where they have basically said, "Oh yes, I have figured out how to automate my own job, and I'm just sitting quiet on this one."
Yeah.
But I like that you like this idea of a rotating secret society of taking someone aside and like letting them know. Oh, that's great. That's really good.
The guy who did it is now really, really senior in the company. Like, he's one of the most senior managers in the company. So I'll have to send him this and tell him that I've blabbed his secret. If he found out his staff were doing that, I'm sure he'd be very upset.
Yeah, I'm sure he'd get rid of them right away.
I'm ill prepared with supplies here.
Do you want to get a glass of water or a Diet Coke right now? Why don't you do that? Just to have it. Just to have it.
I can't be bothered getting up.
I don't understand you sometimes. Okay, you know what I have in front of me? I have not one, but 4 beverages to drink, like in preparation for this. So are you sure you don't want to get something?
I guess we do go for a long time, but 4 drinks seems excessive.
You need to be prepared, that's why.
I'll be right.
Okay.
I went down the Grand Canyon on the hottest day you've ever seen without water.
Oh my God. You could.
I know. I actually nearly died that day.
Yeah, I bet you did, because that's just crazy.
But, I'm hard as nails, mate. The Ice Bucket Challenge is beginning to get a little bit on my nerves. And there's a few things I don't like about it. Is that all right? Am I even allowed to say that?
Well, first of all, for people who might not be aware, give a brief description of it and then tell me what your problem is with the Ice Bucket Challenge.
Maybe the problem is I don't fully understand it. But you pour a bucket of ice water over your head after being challenged to do so by someone else, and then you challenge 3 other people to do it, and you post a video of yourself doing it online. Here's me. Hi, it's Brady here. I've been challenged by Gray. Let's raise money for ALS. Pour it over your head. Scream. Have a laugh. I now challenge 3 other people, Bill Smith, John Jones, and Sally Johnson, to do likewise, and then they have to do so. And there is an element of make sure you give money to the charity. Mm-hmm. And this has obviously become incredibly widespread. And, I don't know who came up with this idea, but they are clearly a genius. And this thing has just taken off and raised all this money for a good cause, and it's hard to say you're annoyed by it. But I am annoyed by it. Mainly because it's everywhere. And every time I go onto Facebook, there's 100 more of them I have to look at. But also, I don't like this sort of chain lettery component to it. I think that's the main thing I don't like about it. This challenging other people to do it. And then there's incredible peer pressure on the people who've been challenged to do it. I know some people who've been challenged, and then people start ringing them up and saying, "I challenge you to do it. Why haven't you done it yet? You're supposed to do it." And it reminds me of back when I was at school, when there used to be these chain letters that that people, it was mainly schoolgirls at the school I went to, would get, and they would have to handwrite 10 copies of it and send it to 10 to other people, because if they didn't do it, like, their mum would be murdered or something like that. And
I forgot about those. I remember those.
Yeah, that's what it's like. It's got this peer pressure-y chain letter component to it that I don't like. And I also do think it's a bit humble braggy, isn't it? It's a bit look at me about charity. And I don't know. That's why it works, though. You know, it's the reason it's worked is it appeals to people's desire to, I don't know. I read a really good term for it. What was it? It was something like donor-centric philanthropy, where the philanthropy is all about putting the emphasis on the people giving the money, which is interesting. I don't know. It raises a lot of there are a few things about it that make me feel uneasy. There are other things about it I think are brilliant. I mean, I've in my BBC days, I had to make a few films about people who were suffering things like motor neuron disease, and there's nothing more terrible. And if they're raising, $100 million for that, it's hard for me to criticize it at all.
Yeah, no,
but there are things about this particular style of campaign that just annoy me a bit. And by the way, I've made a video along these lines. I made a dice bucket challenge on Numberphile where we poured a bucket of 1,500 dice over someone. We raised the money for water aid. This seems to have happened now. People are adapting the charity, and we did it for water aid for various reasons. But so I am as guilty as it. We didn't do the challenge other people, but I have jumped on the bandwagon. So I am as guilty as anyone. But thoughts?
Yeah, I was just looking at the Wikipedia page about it, because I was trying to find some of the origin of this.
Ah, yeah.
And it looks like this is basically a thing that predates the ALS campaign in particular, that this is it is not original with them, and that it is unclear where this started. But that the ALS campaign has also decided to do a kind of ice bucket challenge as well. And yes, these things are very hard to talk about. And I saw ALS kill a very close family friend over a number of years when I was growing up, and that disease is awful. It really is. It is one of the most terrible things that can happen to a person. So, but like, I've seen that stuff up close, and it's very hard to talk about this and separate, like, let's just talk about the mechanics of the thing versus the disease ALS itself, which is awful. So if we're just talking about the mechanics of it, I think I have some of the same feelings that you do, but this is a kind of, I have a very strong, it's almost, I almost think of it as like the opposite of, I don't know what they're called, but I think I've heard them called like the Chinese finger traps. Do you know what I'm talking about if I say that? I don't know if there's a better name for them. They're the rolled up paper things that you put your two index fingers into, and the more you pull, like the tighter it grips your fingers. What would you call that?
Yeah. I'd call it that. Those wrapped up paper things you put your finger in.
There you go. I'm sure there's a better name for it, but I think that's what we called it as kids. But
yeah,
I have kind of a reverse feeling of that to a lot of peer pressure stuff, where it's as well. It's the same challenging aspect of it that I find like a reverse finger trap. Like, the more I would be challenged to do something, the more repulsed I would be by the thing. And the more I have this feeling of like, I'm not going to do a thing just because people are telling me to do it. And the more people are telling me to do the thing, the more I guarantee you I'm not going to do it. And that is not specific to this challenge. This is just the thing in my life in general, which, let me tell you, makes me super popular at parties sometimes. Everyone's like, let's do the fun thing. And it's like, no, if you're telling me to do the fun thing, I'm not doing this. Come on, everybody's doing it. No, now you're just a huge party pooper. You're no fun and nobody likes you. And it's like, well, fine, but you don't tell me what to do. So that is, I have this same kind of reluctance to it. And I haven't been following this thing very closely, but I have seen a couple people specifically say like, I'm doing this thing, but I'm not challenging other people to do it. Yeah. So it's interesting to hear you say that your video that is along these lines, you went that same path, which makes me very happy that you did a thing, but then you say like, I'm not challenging other people to this. But of course, the challenge is exactly what makes it successful. It's this viral spreading of it.
Yeah. It would have
gone nowhere fast if it didn't require the challenging as well.
Yeah. And anyone who has done it and raised money for any cause, I think is brilliant. I do think it's great that they've done it. But
raising money is great.
Yeah. And I don't know. And it's probably just the grumpy old man in me. Something you just said then though. There is a question I want to ask you, and all week I've been thinking I want to ask Gray this question, but there was no excuse to ask you. And it even got to the point where I thought maybe I need to come up with a new segment, which is Brady asks Gray a question. And you've kind of touched on it enough for me to now ask you the question.
Uh-oh.
Are you ready for the first ever installment of Brady Asks Gray a Question?
I'm getting nervous now. I don't know if I want this to be a segment. All your segments live on for a very long time.
Here it is.
Uh-huh.
Do you dance?
Do I dance?
Yes.
I guess no, not really.
So if you're at a party and stuff, or out with mates and
Oh God, at a party, no, definitely not. That's I mean, if I'm home by myself and listening to music, I might do motions that might be interpreted by some very generous people as dancing.
Oh, I would love to see that.
No, you wouldn't. It would be like Elaine on Seinfeld. But
I'm trying to think how much money I would pay for a video of you just dancing at home on your own. It is not insubstantial.
Maybe that'll be my next fundraiser.
That could be the Ice Bucket Challenge. How much money do we have to raise for Gray's cause of choice before he will release a video
but you see,
of himself dancing?
Yeah, but you're already going about this the wrong way. Like, I guarantee you, if I start getting a whole bunch of messages from people on Twitter, like, oh, you have to upload a video of you like, now it will never happen, people.
No, but what if, Bill Gates or someone who, is a listener to the podcast said, Gray, I will donate this sum to the charity of your choice, and the money's on the table.
I really don't like being told what to do. I really don't like that. I could turn down very, very large sums of money.
It's not you turning it down. You're turning it down for a charity.
No, see, this is all a kind of blackmail stroke. Terrorism.
Thank you. Blackmail is the word. They should call it the Ice Bucket Blackmail.
I'm not sure that's exactly right.
But when but naming people, naming them on a video and not telling them you're going to do it. Publicly calling someone out to do something. Okay, blackmail is a really emotive word, and I won't use that word. I'm sorry for using the word blackmail. But publicly calling someone out to do something in a deliberately publicly posted video, that's harsh. If the person doesn't want to do it.
Yeah, and that's why I feel like I'll give you an example of of a similar kind of thing, which would take it away from charity. Have you ever been to a Cirque du Soleil show?
Yes, I have a long time ago.
Okay. So you may remember, but they are big on pulling people out of the audience in a Cirque du Soleil show. And they're always very good, for the most part. They do interesting things and it's part of the show. But I often find myself during these segments when they're clearly coming into the audience to grab someone. This isn't like a raise your hand and volunteer. This is a we're going to grab someone kind of thing. I am always sitting there thinking, please do not pick me because I will be the person who sits here no matter how much the audience boos, and I will not go on stage. It's like, let's make this easy for everybody. You don't want to pick me. And because that's not going to be great for you. You just want somebody who gets up on stage after, because I've actually looked up videos about what happens in Cirque du Soleil, like when someone says no, and it doesn't happen very often.
No.
There's clap, clap, claps. People try to convince and the person says no. And then like the clown does the bigger thing, like let's clap, clap, clap again, right? You get 2 claps, but after that, you get boos, right? People get mad if you don't go up after the second claps.
Yeah.
And like, I will be that person. I am not going on stage because you're telling me to go on stage.
You say that now, but and the heat of the moment, do you think, you're a nice guy. I'm sure you wouldn't like being booed.
This is something. Okay, so I think you bring up an excellent point because there's lots of scenarios under which I totally agree that it is very difficult for people to predict their future behavior. You imagine future you as current you. Like, it's easy to say that now as I'm sitting in an office, right?
Yeah.
Except the only thing is when those clowns are going around, I find myself mentally preparing for this. I am getting ready for this in a very particular way.
Do you know what, Gray? Do you know what, mate? They know it too. They look, you will never get picked because these people are professionals and they know it. One of my jobs when I was a cadet journalist on a newspaper was once a week I had to go out into the street and interview 7 people. I had to ask them a question about the topic of the day. They had to give me a little quote and then we had to take a photo of their face and say their name and their age. So it would be, should women be allowed to vote? CGP Grey, age 42 from Norwood says, yes, they should be allowed to vote. Of course, we're all human beings. Now, getting people to answer a question for you in the street is reasonably easy. Getting them to tell you their name and age and where they live, a bit harder. Getting them agreed to have their photo taken and put in the newspaper, harder again. There are some people who love it and want to do it. There are some people who will not do it. And when I first started doing these vox pops going out into the street, they used to take me forever. They would take me a couple of hours with the photographer and I'd get rejected and I'd be trying to talk people into it and they'd say no. And then over time, as I did it more and more, month after month and then year after year, I became like a Jedi and I could look at people from half a mile away and just tell the photographer, they will say yes, they will say no, they will say yes. The guy on the left will do it, the woman on the right won't do it. Those 2 women will do it, and that man over there won't do it. And it got to a point where my strike rate was just about 100%. I would never be rejected because I would never ask people who would reject me because I just knew the people and I knew all the signs. And I bet you those clowns at Cirque du Soleil are exactly the same. And they scan the audience and they look at you and they're like, in a million years, that guy won't get up. He's the one that will say no, and that's why you will never be picked.
Well, they know. Yeah, I have never in my life been pulled out of the audience for anything. Yeah. And it's funny because my father is the exact opposite. We can never go anywhere. And if they're pulling people out of the audience, my dad gets picked every time.
Why do you think that is?
I have no idea, especially because we're very similar looking guys according to other people. That's why I was going to ask you if you could pick something. What are some of the big tells for either will or won't agree to have their photograph in the newspaper?
Part of it is just a feeling and just a way people move and carry themselves, and other parts of it are more obvious. Women of a certain age are, they become vanity issues. How the person looks, you can sort of tell whether they're the sort of person who likes having their picture taken. The picture was always the problem. Everything else is easy. The picture was the problem. I used to work with a guy called Michael, who was really top guy, still a really good friend, although I don't get to see him or speak to him nearly enough. Very smart, very bright. But also a guy that, we liked giving each other a hard time as well, that kind of friendship.
Right.
So we had a debate in the office where we worked about the origins of the saying a loose cannon. He or she is a bit of a loose cannon. Now, obviously, I think most people know what that saying means. It's someone who's a bit erratic and what they do can potentially be quite damaging to those around them without them kind of even meaning to. Do you have a view or an opinion on the origin of this of this term.
When you say loose cannon, my mental image is a pirate ship with a cannon that is unhinged in some way.
And why is this a problem? Like, what do you mean?
The cannon is not sturdily bolted down, and so in the waves, it can maybe end up pointing to the inside of the ship and firing and causing a huge amount of problem. So that's kind of my mental image.
Okay, that is completely reasonable. This was Michael's position as well. He imagined a cannon not properly secured and therefore firing indiscriminately, not knowing what it might hit and what it might damage, which very much matches what the saying, he's a bit of a loose cannon, means. I was of the view that, in fact, it's a bit more subtle than that. What it is if your cannon on the ship is not properly secured, when you go into a storm, it will start rolling and moving around the deck, and just the sheer weight and mass of the cannon itself will start hitting walls and hitting things and causing damage to your ship. And that is why your cannons need to be well secured. The subtlety being it has nothing to do with the firing of the cannon. That's not the issue here. In my case, the problem is just the movement of this huge, big, weighty thing causes a problem on your ship, which was the origin. Now, this was a long-running debate between us.
Exciting.
I would have thought this is the sort of stuff you love, like this kind of minutiae of factual detail. The thing that's funny though, like if two people have a disagreement like that now, like that seems funny, doesn't it? Because this could be resolved in seconds.
Yeah, I've already pulled up a page that's all about the phrase loose cannon as you're talking.
Exactly. But this was at a time when the internet was truly in its infancy, and the use of the internet for something like this was not possible. This wasn't an option. So we were doing what old-fashioned journalists would do. We were phoning linguistic experts at universities and trying to get hold of books and articles, and it became this big debate between us. In the end, it was decided that I was right. We found an expert who even convinced Michael that my position was right in terms of the origin of the term. And so to sort of celebrate my victory, I made this big scoreboard and like with a huge picture of me and a huge picture of him and our names in great big huge type, and it said Brady 1, Michael 0. And I put it up and it became this big thing, and it became this the Michael Brady scoreboard, not dissimilar to our Gray versus Brady webpage maybe. And this was, he took it in good spirit, but it was sort of a bugbear for him, and it was always in his face. And he wanted to get one back on me. So he kept waiting. We waited for another disagreement, and in the end, he got so desperate to score a point on this scoreboard, he started taking silly risks and calling me out for things being wrong when he wasn't sure I was wrong. And he started losing points. The only other one I remember really well was, there's an airport, I think it's St. Martin Airport, where the planes come in and land over a beach, and they come in so low.
Oh, yes, I know that one.
It's really famous. You see these photos all the time. It looks like the people in their bathers and bikinis could just reach up and touch the bottom of these huge passenger planes.
Yeah, I've used a picture of that somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, again, saying that now, it's like the ultimate cliche, and we've all seen it a million times. But again, this was a time when, with no internet and just email just coming into its own, the first sort of pictures of that were going around on email and stuff, and we saw one. And I was familiar with this airport, and I said, yeah, that's a real thing. And he was convinced it was fake. So I was like, well, this was over a few pints, I remember, at the pub, and I was, well, are you willing to stake a point on the scoreboard on the fact that's fake? And he was like, yeah, I'll do it. And then, we went on to the news wires and the photos, and there were 100 other photos, and he was like, oh, he lost another point. So I don't think he ever took a point off me on the scoreboard, because he just got desperate, and I got very protective and wouldn't take risks. The point being, if only this interesting times thing had come up, this would have been an opportunity for him to take a point off me. Because I was convinced May You Live in Interesting Times was a nice thing and had a nice sentiment. And I am wrong. It's got like There is a slight arc to the story.
That was the end of your story.
Well, I was thinking.
If there was a thing that you were wrong about, and that if a friend you knew years ago was still betting you, he could have scored a point because you were wrong on this thing.
Well, I have to be honest, Gray. I have to be honest. When I was thinking it through, I was hoping you might jump on board with the story from time to time and chime in and ask a few questions.
I was going to let you spin that one out all by yourself, buddy. That was great.
well, that's not really in keeping with the spirit of the podcast, is it? You're supposed to engage. You're supposed to engage and ask stories and say, "Oh, that's really interesting."
But no. You know what this problem? I've had this problem a few times, which is when I feel like I don't know exactly where the thing is going, I find it hard to engage. It's a bit like, wait, what? Where was the thing? And I have to admit, I got distracted while you were telling the story because I was reading all up on this loose cannon page, which has some remarks about, loose cannon as a phrase was used in 1874, but it mentions it as a French translation from a book. And there's a couple of other like dodgy references to loose cannon. And so while you were telling your story, then I went over to the Google Books Ngram viewer, which, do you know what the Ngram viewer is?
I don't even care. I'm so disappointed that you are yet again just surfing the internet while I'm telling my stories. I'm going to
keep plowing ahead. So the Ngram viewer is this amazing tool from Google Books where they've digitized all the books from 1800 to now that they can get their hands on, and they've done OCR across all the books, and so you can search for the relative frequency of word usage over time, which is very interesting. And this is one of the things that I used in my what were the popular names for the planet Uranus over time, so you can see the alternatives rise and fall. So anyway, I looked up loose cannon on the Google Ngram viewer, and it suspiciously has no references before about 1930 in the English language. There's just nothing there. Mm. Doesn't necessarily mean anything because, of course, the data gets more spotty as you get closer to 1800. But still, this makes me wonder if this is one of these phrases that is actually modern, but that we think is much older than it really is. But then I got distracted because you mentioned St. Martin, and I was thinking, where I know, what video must that have been? So I was looking up St. Martin. And of course, St. Martin is the island that is named thrice because the island is St. Martin. The northern part of the island is French and is also named St. Martin. And the southern part of the island is Dutch and named St. Martin. So that would have been in my Netherlands video.
You did a lot of stuff while I was telling that story. Then I went and made a cup of tea, and then I went to the toilet and wrote a few scripts.
I was listening. I was definitely listening.
No, I'm not sure you were. Do you know what I find really interesting? Whenever something comes up, like, this is obviously a bit of a theme between us. Mm-hmm. I always want to tell, like, an anecdote. Like, if something happens, I'm like, that reminds me of a story. And I tell one of my big, long stories. Mm-hmm. And you are really, all you want to do is talk about like some functional thing. Oh, that reminds me of Google Ngram, which is this tool that you can use to do this. Mm-hmm. And this you're like, wait, don't you like a bit of a story? Like, and it does occur to me, I don't often think of times that you spin yarns about people like, that reminds me of my cousin Jimmy that once climbed a tree and fell off onto a spike. And like, you don't really, I can't think of many of those stories you tell.
That cousin Jimmy story sounds great.
Yeah. I could make one up if you want. I'm sure. Give you a chance to surf the internet again.
Yeah, I'm sure you can. I'll be looking up spike-related injury frequency in just a moment.
Yeah, and some app that tells you where every spike is in the Northern Hemisphere so you can avoid them and how useful this is. And
yeah, that'd be great. Oh, man, I would want something like that.
Did you follow the Nobel Prizes this year? Any thoughts on the Nobel Prize in general?
Well, I basically didn't know the Nobel Prizes happened until just now.
I'll take that as a no.
So sorry.
You don't. What do you think about the Nobel Prize? You think it's a good thing, or do you think prizes are a load of rubbish and science is above prizes? Or you don't like trinkets? I can't imagine you'd like gold medals, but $1 million, I imagine you'd see some merit to.
So. Okay, I don't know if here's a slight prize-related story. Here, you want an anecdote? I'll give you an anecdote.
All right. Hang on, just let me get my internet open. Let me open Safari.
yeah, that's right. There you go. So you can zone me out while I'm talking.
No, go on. I wait with bated breath.
So, as you may know, but for the benefit of the audience, if you get 1 million subscribers on YouTube, then YouTube sends you this gold play button. And it is impossible to describe how enormous this thing is. It comes in this huge frame, and this golden play button is like a sphere the size of a human head. This prize is enormous. I will try to find a video, because there's a few on YouTube of people opening up their golden play boxes, and they always say the same thing.
Gray, I have to interrupt, because you're not going to believe this.
What?
Mine arrived 4 hours ago.
No way.
And it is within eyeshot of me, and it is still in the box. That's how fresh it is. I haven't even opened it yet.
Okay.
I can testify to the fact the box is enormous and incredibly heavy, but it just arrived.
Okay.
I couldn't That's too amazing.
All right, so this works out just perfectly. Yeah, so you just got yours.
I literally have it. I haven't even opened it.
When I reached 1 million subscribers, I had a very excellent and very thorough partner manager at YouTube. And for those who aren't aware, a partner manager at YouTube is someone who you can ask questions, and they want to make sure everything is okay with your channel. And this partner manager kept trying to ask, where do you want the golden play button sent? And trying to extract the information from me. And she must have chased me for months about, where do you want us to send the golden play button? How is the best way to get it to you? Should we just have it shipped to YouTube headquarters and I can hand it to you and you can, bring it home on the underground? Should we have it shipped to your parents? And like trying desperately to extract this information from me. And I spent so much effort constantly trying to derail the conversation or avoid direct answers, because I had no desire to have this gigantic, useless trophy in my house. And I think, what is awesome? What's awesome is that I have 1 million subscribers, that many people want to watch the videos I make. I am truly humbled by that number of people. What I don't need is a gigantic thing in my house to constantly remind me of that. Like I don't need this at all.
Like a wedding video.
No, not like a wedding video, because a wedding video can be a file on my computer that I never even have to look at if I don't want to. Gigantic gold play button. What the heck am I going to do with that? So I was dodging her forever before finally it was relinquished. And I am a fortunate person now to still be sitting here with over 1 million subscribers and no gigantic golden play button. I don't want it. Obviously, personally, I don't like trophies. And I don't know if you remember, but a few, maybe was it last year, I guess? It was near the time I was crossing the 1 million subscriber mark. There was also one of the YouTube EDU conferences that we went to. And Hank Green was there with the Crash Course people, who make an excellent YouTube channel. And it just so happened that Hank Green was there at the YouTube conference when he crossed 1 million subscribers.
Yes.
And so at the conference, they presented him with the gigantic golden play button.
Yeah.
And I had been trying really hard to hit 1 million subscribers before that conference, because I just thought, I would like to be at the conference and have 1 million subscribers. That would seem like it was fun. I cannot tell you how much relief I was filled with at the conference when I realized, I only have 900,000, and that I didn't have to go up on stage and they weren't going to hand me some gigantic golden play button, because my only thought would have been, how the heck am I going to get this home? Like, thanks. Like, can I leave this here? Is this impolite to just, pretend to forget it in the Google cafeteria and just try to get the heck out of there without it? So yes, I've not a personal fan of trophies. What are you going to do with yours? The thing is enormous.
Well, actually, as you are aware, because hopefully you are coming along as a special observer and guest, I have a video planned that kind of belatedly celebrates Numberphile reaching 1 million subscribers.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I was hoping to have it there and somehow incorporate it into the video to say, hey, we've reached 1 million. Here's the button. Now that I have seen how big and heavy it is, I will not be taking it.
Yes.
But I don't agree with you. I think I don't mind trophies. I know they are kind of a vanity thing. And I have a few in my office, and I have a few that I have given to people at the university who have helped make the videos possible. It's a nice thing to be able to do. So, I don't hate them the way you do, but I see them for what they are. But coming back to you not wanting your play button, can I put two things out there? Mm-hmm. One, I know your parents are, justifiably very proud of the things you've accomplished. Why not have it sent to their home and let them have it up in a room somewhere and say, oh, yeah, that's our son, he's a very successful filmmaker, and that wouldn't interest them either?
They would probably be much more interested than me. And that was my backup plan, was if I was ever in a situation where I cannot possibly get out of it, I'll have that thing shipped to my parents and let them deal with it.
Well, can I give you a third option?
Yes.
Can I have it?
No, you can't have my golden play button. You're going to have two in your house.
No, because I think it would be a really fun video to take CGP Grey's golden play button and throw it off a cliff or smash it with an axe and film it.
No, that I don't agree with, because that's different, right? That's disrespectful of the thing.
No. Okay, yeah. I wasn't thinking of it in that context, but yeah.
Because
I didn't mean that.
That's a bit like, fuck this. That's not the thing.
Just to be clear, that's not what I meant. That's not the spirit I meant it in. I meant it more in just doing something spectacular. Yeah. I didn't mean. I think it's a really lovely thing that they send us these. Yeah. They don't have to send us these things for free. It's a very nice thing they do.
Yeah, no,
I didn't mean it. Yeah.
It definitely is. But and that's where, again, I am not opposed to the abstract notion of winning prizes, but it's like the important part about winning the Nobel Prize is that you won the Nobel Prize. It is not the actual physical object that they hand you. That's the difference here. And with the YouTube thing, it's like, I have the 1 million subscribers. I don't need some object to remind me that is the case. But obviously, Nobel Prizes way less frequent than YouTubers with 1 million subscribers. So they are vastly more valuable. Plus they also come with, is it still $1 million? Actually, I don't know. Is that the case?
I think it's over $1 million, actually.
Is it by one? Maybe
it's because it's in kroner, and obviously the exchange rate changes, and it's in Swedish kroner. But I think it works out to a bit over $1 million. Of course, it usually gets split up. People rarely win it alone anymore, but
yeah, well, that's part of the question about the Nobel Prize now, isn't it?
Yeah, because no more than 3 people can win it. Can I ask you, Brady Asks Grey, a random question?
Yes.
You promised I could make this a segment. So.
Yeah, sorry, I was just distracted. It's $1.2 million at the current exchange rate.
Oh, yeah, that's what I said. Just over $1 million.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Brady Asks Grey a random question, which isn't totally random. This is actually a favourite question of mine to ask people. With you, these questions won't be as fun because I know exactly what the answers will be, but I'll see where I can take it.
Uh-oh.
Would you rather win a Nobel Prize or a World Series or Super Bowl, winner's ring? I'm imagining a Nobel Prize.
Well, hold on a second. Does this mean I have to put in all the work required to get either of those prizes? Because a Nobel Prize means I'm also signing up for a lifetime of some of the hardest work that a human being can possibly do.
You can jag a Nobel Prize with just a little bit of luck, whereas you've got to do
can you
fitness training every day.
That it's a lucky one for a Nobel Prize? Because I'm not signing up to win a Nobel Prize when I'm 70. And that sounds like an enormous amount of work. Whereas a World Series, that sounds like less work.
What I'm saying is, when you're about to die and you're about to draw your last breath, I'm preparing your obituary, do you want me to be saying CGP Grey, the Nobel Prize winner, or CGP Grey, the Super Bowl winner? The Super Bowl quarterback who won the Super Bowl.
What I will have cared about when I'm dying is if I have lived an enjoyable life, and so that's why I'm trying to figure out what is required of me with these two prizes, because the World Series sounds like way easier than.
I think being an athlete is quite you have to do a lot of exercise and a lot of fitness and running.
Yes, but I'm also thinking that this is a much more limited period of time of your life, probably.
Yeah.
And if I'm winning a World Series, I'm probably a fairly well paid athlete as well. Scientists, not well paid. So this is what I'm trying to do the calculations on here. I might actually go for the World Series. I think I'm definitely leaning that way.
You take these questions so different to my other friends.
I don't understand how else I'm supposed to think about that.
Would you rather win a Nobel Prize or an Oscar?
Well, I just have the exact same question. Do I have to do the work for these things? Because again, Oscar sounds like it's the way better deal. I think I'm going to go for an Oscar.
Yeah, but it also has less cachet, doesn't it? Depending on your mindset.
Again, I'm concerned about the quality of my life, not the greatness of my obituary. Obviously, Nobel Prize winners contribute way more to society than any actor or any sportsman. But that is not a relevant question for how do I necessarily want to live my life.
You really, every decision you make is just based on making your life better. There's no thought of legacy or impact, or all legacy. You care about is just.
I'll be dead when there's legacy. You know, it's just
that's kind of what legacy means.
No, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
A legacy. I do not optimize my life for that. I think it is great that people do. I am very glad those people exist. I am not a person who is capable of being really interested in what happens after I am dead, because I will not be able to be interested because I will be dead. On my phone, on my home screen, I only have 2 rows of icons when I turn on my phone. So that's 8 icons in total. But Apple does not allow you to arbitrarily place where these icons go. You have to fill the icons in from the top left to the bottom right.
Yeah.
And so this means the only icons I have, they are almost all, I need to have a little pinky drop action to hit them all very comfortably.
They're like marooned at the top of the screen.
That's exactly it. And if you do the little double tap thing, Apple will slide them down halfway on the screen. And every time I look at that, I think, why can't you just leave the icons in the middle? If I could put them anywhere that I would want, I would put them in the middle of my screen and I would be much happier. But no, they have to be at the top. I was even wondering, can somebody make or can I buy on the App Store a blank application, an application that does nothing except it has a transparent icon and no text, and just
just to force all the other ones down.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like I'm trying to do the count here. I would need about 12, 8 or 12. Right. If somebody made 8 or 12 $1 blank icons, I would buy them today just to move my own app's icons halfway down the screen into the place where it is most comfortable.
They have to be invisible though. You won't just put fillers there like that.
No. I mean, some people have so many icons on their phone when they open their phone up. I don't understand. Yeah. I don't understand how they do it. I'm gonna throw Derek under the bus now.
All right, it's about time someone else got it.
I was very lucky enough to see Derek, he of Veritasium. Oh, I got it right that time. Derek came through London. It's one of the reasons why I love living in the city is every once in a while people I know happen to pass through. It's a great juncture point, and if I'm lucky, they come and see me. So I saw Derek. We had a nice afternoon chatting about stuff. But at one point, Derek handed me his phone, and I looked at it, and there were just pages and pages filled with icons. And I was just horrified by this. Yeah. I don't understand how people live like this. And Derek could see that I was revolted by looking at his phone and asked me, what was wrong? And I said, all of these icons are what's wrong. And then Derek said, oh, don't worry. I don't use most of them, which to me is like my brain just could not handle this. And the thing is does not compute is Derek thought he was saying something that would improve the situation, but it just made it a million times worse. What do you mean? You have 5 pages of icons and you don't use most of them? In what world do you think that makes me feel better about all these icons. And I don't mean to pick on Derek here. It's just, this is the most recent case where this has happened. But I always see this where people open up their phone and there's just a million icons and like, oh, I don't use most of them. How do you live like that?
He might, but the one day he needs it, it needs to be there.
Yeah, but I have a ton of icons on my phone as well, and almost all of them live in a folder called rarely used. Right? Just shove them all in there so that they're not on your actual home screen, but if you happen to need them, they're installed on the phone.
You have a folder called rarely used, so you rarely use them, and yet it's still taking up space on your phone. Oh.
But it's not.
You need to put them in, and you need to get rid of that.
You are just intentionally trying to provoke me now. I have a system. My system is very clear. There are 2 rows and 2 rows only allowed on the front of the phone. Yeah. So this is to help prioritize. What do you actually use the phone for?
It's to enforce a workflow on you. It's not an aesthetic thing. It's to enforce a workflow.
It is also an aesthetic thing because nothing looks more hideous than an iPhone filled with icons. Especially now the phones are bigger and you can have so many icons on there. I have always been, even before I decided on just limiting it to 2 rows, I have always been firmly in the belief that at the very least, the bottom row, the row directly above the dock, should be empty.
Yeah, even I do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I just realized I haven't asked, and I think I'm slightly afraid to ask what your iPhone looks like. I don't actually know. I've never seen what your iPhone looks like. But you do leave that the bottom row has to be clearly, right?
The bottom row has to be clear. I have a high discipline on my first page, but I do have a couple of folders on my first page. So what I do is, like, for example, so it doesn't get crazy.
That's fine.
Yeah. So things like all my social media stuff, like Twitter and Facebook and Skype and all that sort of stuff, they all go into a folder on the front page. So they're not all in your face, but they are accessible from the front page. So yeah, I keep the bottom row clear, but also,
oh, thank God.
But all the rows above that have to be filled. You can't have like a jagged end. It has to be like symmetrical.
Oh yeah, no, you can't have the jagged end at all.
What do you have as your background image on your phone? Do you have like an interesting image, or like seeing you've got all that space that is there? What fills all that empty space?
You probably laugh if I sent you my background image right now. I'm going to go back to Derek for a minute, again, continuing to throw him under the bus. When he handed me his phone as well, there was a picture of a kitty cat, right? There's like this cat that's just sitting in a basket for his lock screen and for his background. So I, like an idiot, said, "Oh, you got a cat?" No, this was just some stranger's cat. Somebody else, while Derek had handed them his phone, had taken a picture of their cat and then just set it as his lock screen and as his wallpaper. And he just left it. He never felt the need to change it. And I don't understand. I'm so sorry, Derek. I don't mean to bring all this up for the internet, but I just don't understand that. When iOS 7 came out, which was the first one that introduced all this translucency effect, so that your wallpaper then affects the way the rest of your apps look, I spent days, literally days, trying to find an acceptable background. Because now it was not just something that looks pretty. It has to be something that looks pretty and works well with the translucency.
Yeah.
I really must have dedicated, I don't know, 16 hours to the hunt for trying to find the perfect iPhone background. And in the end, I just had to give up because I was unable to find something that was adequate. And so I had to settle for something. So you're laughing at
Derek's image, but you spent 16 hours trying to choose an image and still didn't choose one.
But that's exactly it. This is why it's funny, because in some ways, Derek and I are very similar, and in some ways, we are not very similar at all. And with respect to the home screen selection, clearly Derek is on the more rational end of this spectrum, right? It's like borderlining on a mental disorder to spend that much time trying to select the perfect wallpaper for your background. But I could not let it go.
I'm not even sure about the borderline part there, but anyway.
Borderline, Brady. Definitely borderline. Okay. But anyway, I have to say I was extremely happy because when iOS 8 came out, I thought, oh no, I feel this itch to let's try to solve the background issue. And I did put in a good afternoon, but I finally found an iPhone background that I am very, very happy with. But Derek laughed at me immediately when he saw my background. and just said, really, really. So my background is kind of an abstract, black and dark gray pattern, but it is not a photograph of anything.
Okay.
What is your background?
My background image is a photograph of Mount Everest taken with my iPhone from Kalapatar, which is a summit opposite Mount Everest, which affords the best view of Mount Everest you can get without being like a hardcore climber. So I'm quite proud of it. But it's kind of, it's not obtrusive. It's kind of, because the sky is kind of purpley and the mountains are a bit purpley. And so it's kind of, I wouldn't call it abstract, but it also isn't something you look at and think, oh, look, there's a photo of something really specific, like a person. It's quite...
that is also just an awesome achievement photograph. Like, you took that at Everest. You know, like that photograph has more meaning than other photographs would.
True. I didn't mean it as a humble brag, but it totally is.
No, that's not a humble brag. You weren't putting yourself down in any way. That is not a humble brag. Not even close. Sorry.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, it lacked the... But, yeah, you're right. It was just a brag. It was just a brag.
It was just a brag. That's all it was. It was just a brag.
Did you just text me?
I did just text you, but
you've texted me your pattern.
Just so you can see what it looked like, in case you were that interested.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of what you've done there.
I wouldn't expect anybody else to be a fan, but for me, it totally works.
The problem is it's too sharply defined. Like, the lines are too sharply defined, and so it draws the eye. If it had a bit of soft focus over it, so all those sort of triangles that make up the pattern were not quite so distinct, I think it would work better. But I think they draw the eye a bit too much for mine.
This is getting to be a bit like our flags episode. We're going to describe for people things that would be much better if they could just see them.
All right, I'm gonna send you mine, but you will be upset, and the reason you'll be upset is because of all the red badges all over everything.
Oh no, you're not one of those people. You have red badges. Nobody gets a red badge except messages. Nobody gets a red badge.
You are not going to be happy with me. But I'll send you anyway just so you can see how Everest works.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I do see some people's phones where there's just red badges everywhere. And again, how do you live like this? I don't understand. I don't understand at all.
Don't be mad at me, but here they come. Oh, you're going to be really mad when you see the email. Anyway.
Well, your email, I'm used to that now, where you have 20,000 unread messages because I don't know why.
Part of the reason for the unread messages on my
you're
iPhone.
Always full of a story about it. Oh, I love this. Okay. Brady's unread messages show as 7 ... 8. What does that even mean? How many digits are those ... dots hiding?
You actually need arrow notation to know how many unread emails I have. No, this is actually...
Hey, wait a minute. Have you not upgraded to iOS 8? You have a badge on your settings app.
Oh, no. I was hoping you wouldn't call me on that.
You haven't upgraded to iOS 8?
Look, this is the situation.
This is no situation.
I'm a bit worried, you see, because I got spooked by the bug with 8.01 or whatever.
The 8.01, yeah.
Yeah, I got spooked by that because I hadn't yet gone to 8, which in itself I know is wrong.
So what is your game plan here? You're just never going to upgrade?
No, yeah, I'll upgrade. Upgrading has big penalty. Well, on iPhone it never has, but every time I upgrade my operating system on my Mac, it costs me a fortune in buying software again. And I'm not even joking, because I use Avid, which isn't as Mac friendly as some other software, but I use it on a Mac. Every time I upgrade, my Avid stops working and I have to buy another one. It costs me a fortune.
I understand that, but let's constrain this discussion to your phone.
All right.
So what's your game plan? You're just going to leave that red badge there, staring you in the face every day on your home screen, nonetheless, with the settings right there. Look at all these. Look at all these red things.
What do you think about Everest?
The background is fine. I'm okay with that. I approve. You have a lot more folders than I would have thought. But all of these badges, I'm going
to do away with that bottom row, actually, because I don't need those things on there.
But you've got I can't believe you haven't upgraded to 8. I just don't. Derek hadn't upgraded to 8 either. I don't understand. I'm loving 8. I think 8 is really good.
I'm not an early adopter. I let other people take the bullet. I'm like a field marshal at the back, and I wait till all the soldiers have fallen on the field and all their bugs have happened and their phones have stopped working. And then when the coast is clear and everyone's happy, I triumphantly come through and upgrade then.
Okay, well, I'm letting you know. We're on 8.02 now, and I'm giving you the all clear on this one. It's fine.
I need more than just the all clear from you. I'll get there.
Okay.
I'll get there.
Okay, you'll get there.
Eventually, I'll get so annoyed by the prompts coming up all the time on iTunes when I plug my phone in that I'll just deal with it.
Okay.
That's made you mad as well somehow, I'm aware, but
no, that's totally fine. The one time I feel clouds of foreboding on the future of civilization and the state of the world is if I'm on a train and I am in the quiet cabin and other people are not quiet. I don't understand the world, and it makes me really grumpy, and I feel like we're in the quiet train, people. Don't you understand? This is not the place for your cell phone conversation. You too elected to be on the quiet train.
There's a whole bunch of other cabins they could move to.
I know.
It's not like they're not catered to.
I know. This is why it's like, we have tried to have this little area where self-selecting people can go, and we can sit and we can be quiet together and ignore each other. But when people are on the quiet train and they themselves cannot possibly be quiet, that is one time where I feel like all of society is doomed if we can't pull this little tiny bit off.
The only time I think it's okay to make noise and have a phone call in the quiet cabin is if it's me who needs to make the noise or make a phone call.
So you are the problem. That is great. That is exactly all right. So yeah. So that is what I assume every one of these people on the quiet train is thinking. Oh. My phone call conversation / unattended daughter who's running up and down the aisle. Oh, that's perfectly fine.
Oh, no, hang on. I didn't say anything about unattended daughters. That's different. I'm not having that.
I'm not saying, obviously you don't have an unattended daughter, but I'm sure that mother on my last train, who I was particularly irritated with, she's thinking the same thing too. Oh, my kid is totally fine. My phone conversation is totally fine. Sure, I'm in the quiet train. Everybody else is being quiet. They're giving me the stink eye, but it's fine because it's me.
I was joking. I am like
I'm not sure you were.
I'm a square. I follow the rules. I don't like breaking rules.
Why can't we pull this together, people? I'm not asking for a lot. It's a bit like when I used to be a teacher. I was always I don't know how to put this, but I found it hard to understand the kids who just couldn't be quiet. All I'm asking for is inaction. It is literally the easiest thing in the world. And you want to be loud and noisy, which is more effort. You seem to not be able to do nothing. You seem to have to do something.
It's you. They're like puppies. It's like you think, why won't you just go to sleep, puppy? They won't. They just want to do stuff. They've just got too much energy. It's like trying to contain the sun inside a lunchbox. It's just too much energy.
I don't know, maybe. But when people are talking in the quiet cabin, I look at them and I just think, I bet I know exactly what you were like in school. I bet you couldn't be quiet in school either. Quiet cabins make me feel like I can't believe this whole civilization project has worked out as well as it has, and makes me slightly gloomy. But aside from that, I had a lovely trip.
When you're not online yet, and I'm just testing the sound on my computer, the thing I always do is sing. Like I sing a little segment of a song and then listen back to test that the microphone worked. And now that I've figured out how to work my microphone a bit better, I've realized I am a really bad singer.
Oh, yeah?
Really bad. Are you a good singer? Because you have a nice speaking voice. I think you have a good speaking voice. What's your singing voice like? I'm not going to ask you to sing because
I won't.
Well, that would be ridiculous. Yeah, exactly. I'm not even going to waste my breath.
You can ask all you want. This is not going to happen.
What would it take? Will I ever hear you sing? Like if you have lots and lots of wine, will you sing? Or are there circumstances under which you would sing in my presence?
Probably not. Maybe if it's your birthday and everybody's singing you happy birthday, but that's not really singing.
No,
that's more like public chanting.
And you'd never do karaoke, for example.
No. What are you, crazy? Of course I wouldn't do karaoke. I'm not going to stand up on the stage there and sing. Like everybody in the whole wide world, if you ever sing, you sound reasonably good in your own head. But if you ever have to face the cold, hard reality of the recorded version of your voice, you discover that you don't sound good. And just like with people hearing their recorded voice in general, when you are singing, you're pitching your voice to the voice in your head, which literally does sound different than your speaking voice. So that causes the horrifying disparity.
It is worse singing. Like, I mean, I don't like listening to my voice back, like even on the podcast.
Nobody does.
I can tolerate it, yeah.
But
does. Singing, just like, whoa, man, that is an audio car crash.
Will you sing for me?
No.
Okay.
No. Oh, no, I do karaoke after I've had enough drinks. I love karaoke.
Well, now we need to go to a karaoke bar, I guess, at some point.
I'd love that. And I think I'm amazing, and obviously I'm not, so...
I'm sure you are amazing, Brady.
I remember one time I was doing karaoke, and a friend of mine and I did Read My Mind by The Killers, which is one of my favourite songs. And I was amazing, it was incredible. I think, people wept. So anyway, I thought, I must own that song. And then another time I was out at some place, and me and another mate crashed this karaoke party. I don't know. It's a long story. We crashed this karaoke party, and then I was like, "Okay, everyone, I'm gonna blow you all away with Read My Mind by The Killers." And it turns out this was a slightly younger audience, and they had not even heard of the song, and I was literally. They literally turned me off halfway through, like they stopped the song, and I had to just walk out in shame.
Ooh.
That was a humbling moment.
Yes, that is a genuinely humbling moment, man. To get turned off at a karaoke party.
Because not only was I singing terribly, I was singing a song terribly that no one had heard of. So I was like, and I was a stranger, they didn't know me, so there was no goodwill. So it was just like, everything was going against me that day.
Yeah, that is the hat trick of karaoke terribleness that you've pulled off there. Bad singing voice, they don't know you or the song. Yes, I can see. They're going to pull the plug on that one. Very often when I'm traveling to the United States or from the United States, I am flying standby, which means I don't exactly know which plane I'm going to get on or exactly what time I'm going to leave.
You should explain why that's a perk, because so far it just sounds like an enormous pain in the backside.
I'm sorry. I guess that's right. It is a perk because, one, it is vastly cheaper than buying a ticket. And the second perk is that if you are lucky, sometimes you can end up in a business seat or a first class seat.
That is game changing.
However, if you are unlucky, you end up in a middle seat in economy.
Sitting next to me, most likely.
Yeah. The coin goes both ways on this one. It's like, oh, heads, oh, look at you. You're in business class. Isn't that great? Tails, nope. In the middle of 5 in the back of economy. But my calculation on this is the cost saving plus probability of business class is worth it. Yep. But it does mean that I sometimes have longer days at the airport. And this is why I feel like I need to be prepared. If I'm going to possibly be spending a day at the airport, I want to make sure I have everything is ready to go. Like I'm camping, I bring my own food. I want to make sure that I'm all set with everything I could possibly need under all circumstances when traveling. But
do you get to go into the airline lounge if you're on standby in that situation, though? Like, do you get because then you get food and power?
That lounge is only for people who've actually paid for business class or first class. They don't let us standby plebes into that lounge. I've never been in any of those lounges. I don't know if they look like, but they seem like magical places. The doors open, cool, fresh air that smells like a beach. Comes rolling out.
I have been in them on a couple of occasions for various reasons. And
Mr. Fancy.
It's a long story, but they are nice. You can get ones that you pay to go in too, and they're quite nice too. I think sometimes they're worth a little bit of money if you're going to be at an airport for a long time. But anyway,
I'll keep that in mind.
Well, I have another one that I want to spring on you.
Oh, boy.
And this is called the Brag Humble.
Oh, man. This is going to be trouble. What is this?
For a start, I quite like the name Brag Humble because it sounds, is he bragging humble? Like, is he Breaking Bad? So I think, is he bragging humble sounds kind of cool.
Uh-huh.
But the brag humble is the opposite of the humble brag.
Uh-huh.
It contains both components, but with different intent. So for a start, let's establish the humble brag is all about for those.
Oh man!
For those who may have missed it.
This is just what we need to throw more confusion into this thing. I feel like I'm already thanking you for this. When I get tweets from people. Go ahead.
For those who may have missed it, the humble brag is about saying something that is ostensibly humble, but your real intent is to brag.
Right.
That's where your intent is in a humble brag, isn't it? It's to brag.
Right.
That's what you're doing.
Right.
Do you agree?
Yes.
Are we agreed on that?
Yes, we are agreed on this.
All right. The brag humble is when you brag, but the intent of the brag is to increase the humility.
Okay, I'm going to need an example of this.
Okay, let me give you an example. As you know, I was recently in California. And I was mainly in Berkeley, but one day I went to the other famous university in the area, which is Stanford.
Mm-hmm.
So I went and spent the night in a hotel because I had an early meeting. Got up early and, got prepared and made my way to a meeting with a really famous, important person who I can't believe I got to meet because he rarely meets with people.
Mm-hmm.
A guy called Don Knuth.
Mm-hmm.
And in the world of computer science, I am bragging right now.
Okay.
I went to his house. I spent hours with him. We filmed some things for Numberphile and Computerphile. Had a great time with him. It was fantastic. Me and Don Knuth.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And even at the end, he even said I had a really good time. I really enjoyed it, and I felt like $1 million. I then went to another meeting, and before my other meeting, I went to the bathroom and looked in the mirror. And there was this huge white streak going from the corner of my mouth, basically all the way to my ear. Really, like I was painted, like Indian war paint. It was so prominent, and I was like, "What on earth is that? What's happened?" So I put my finger on it and tasted it because that's just what I do when I see chemicals. and luckily it wasn't What it was a huge streak of toothpaste.
Oh man!
So clearly, and I do remember that and what had happened that morning is I'd had my electric toothbrush with me, but it had run out of power, so I brushed my teeth with it like a normal toothbrush, which isn't a good idea with an electric toothbrush.
Yeah, it doesn't work satisfactorily doing that.
Yeah, and I was in a rush, and I didn't look in the mirror because I'm rubbish. When my wife's not around to look after me, I just look rubbish and stuff. So basically, I spent my morning with the great man of computer science, having this fantastic time with this enormous streak of toothpaste going all the way from my mouth to my ear. And he's too nice a guy to bring it up. He was a total gentleman. And I met his wife and everything. And I must have looked like the biggest idiot of all time. And there you go. That is a brag humble because the brag just increased the humbleness at the end.
Okay.
Where do you stand on this?
I'm not impressed by that, but more importantly, I need to know, how did you get the toothpaste in a streak going all the way up to your ear? Did you attempt to put the toothbrush in your mouth and you missed and you dragged it all along the side of your face? Is this the scenario under which you had a streak of toothpaste running along the side of your face? I don't understand.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'm not a morning person.
Yeah, but that's pretty impressive. To miss your mouth with the toothbrush. Like, I mean, is that what happened?
I don't know what happened.
That has to be what happened.
Who knows what happened? But it happened.
I think you know what happened.
I don't know what happened. It was I didn't. Who knows? That's what happened to me. So anyway, when it happened, I thought, oh, that's a good story. I have to tell Gray about it. And then I thought, I'm not humble bragging. I'm bragging humble.
Bragging humble.
Because I could have told you that story without the Don Knuth element, and it just would be a story. But putting the brag in increased the humility. Do you not agree?
It makes it more embarrassing. I don't know if it makes it more humbling. I'm not sold on the brag humble. I think you're just going nuts with variations on the humble brag. And this one is a bit of reaching for straws, if I'm being honest with you. I think this is just an embarrassing story made worse, is what it is. That's what this is.
The more you say that, the more I think it works. The more you say, yes, it's made worse, it increases the embarrassment. The more I think I'm onto something here.
Well,
it's a brag humble.
I think we will have to let the listeners decide. Washington Dulles Airport is one of the worst airports in the world. It is absolutely terrible. It's just the whole airport is designed to feel claustrophobic. It is a single, just unbelievably long tube, and I swear the ceiling must be only 7 feet from the ground. It's just, it's awful, and they have some problem for years now. I've gone in and out of Dulles. They have some problem with the heating system in this gigantic airport, and so as you walk between sections of this endless column, some of the sections, it must be 85 degrees and steamy and tropical in. And then other sections, it's like an Arctic wasteland. And so nowhere in the airport is even remotely comfortable to be. Plus, there's the claustrophobia feeling everywhere. And they have the worst selection of shops ever. And it's a terrible, terrible airport. I don't understand why it hasn't been burned to the ground and they just start over because it's awful.
So
I was looking forward to about 7 hours in one of my least favorite airports in the world.
That's a long time.
It is a very long time because I'm not the panicky person that I am. I'm not going to go do anything in DC because then I have to, strategize about when am I going to get back. And there's always a possibility that flights change and things. So I need to be near the airport anyway. So I had basically a full working day in the airport. And I remembered a comment that you said on the last podcast, which wouldn't have crossed my mind otherwise, so I blame this entirely on you, which is that some of the lounges at the airports, you can pay to get into the lounge. Yeah. And you cannot do, what I was confused about is you cannot do this with the first class lounges. Those are for just the billionaires who care not about money. But for the rest of us, you can purchase a day pass to some of those lounges. And I thought, I have 7 hours in this god-awful airport. I would never normally do this, but I'm going to buy one of these passes today. And so I did. And so I spent most of the day in a somewhat comatose state, just sitting in front of a big window and watching airplanes take off and watching the ground crew do stuff in a relatively comfortable environment. So that was a little airport lounge experience. But I'm going to blame it on you because I wouldn't have done it if you hadn't mentioned it last time. And I wouldn't have
millionaire jokes aside, would you do it again? Like, was it good advice?
If I had... What would be my cutoff point? I think if I had 3.5 or more hours at Dulles, I would buy the pass again. I think that is the point at which it makes sense. Less than 3.5 hours, it starts becoming, this is just I'm not sure this is entirely worth it. But Dulles is really awful. So it would also depend on how tolerant I'm feeling of the world in general. But I think that's the cutoff point. So anyway.
My flight back from Chicago got delayed by 4 hours.
Were you just on the runway?
No. I was inside. They hadn't put us on the plane. But they were fixing the brakes or something.
Oh, I hate it when there's a mechanical thing. I start getting nervous about the plane,
Yeah.
If you've been on a plane where they had a mechanical thing and you're flying over the ocean, I mean, it's already hard not to think about the black abyss of water that awaits for you below the airplane. It's extra difficult when you know you're on a plane that they just maybe barely fixed a few hours ago. I get vertigo sometimes just even thinking about what is beneath the airplane, especially when it's over water. That's no good. Because on land, you have a chance. On water, nothing but death awaits you if you crash in the middle of the ocean. It's just over. Over if you're lucky, quickly. Not, it could take days. Sorry. I didn't mean to keep going on like that. I was trying to stop myself.
I thought I was the morbid plane crash guy. You're encroaching on my territory there.
This is a personal fear. You are interested in the deaths of others. I am interested in avoiding my own death. And on an airplane, it is shockingly safe air travel. But there is that situation of you have no control. Sometimes I find my mind wandering towards the pilots and thinking, I wonder if he got a lot of sleep last night. Or what if that pilot just had a divorce and he wants to kill himself and he's going to take all of us down with him? What could we do under that situation? Not very much. Not very much at all.
No.
And so you just, you start thinking about all the worst case scenarios. plus mechanical failure,
all right,
plus dying of exposure in the water. Anyway.
I hope you're enjoying your flight, Tim.
I visited my parents for a week before the Alabama thing, and my parents are probably listening right now because I swear,
well, not actually right now, but
yeah, but listening to the recorded thing.
Yeah,
I swear, one of the most popular topics of conversation in the house was how much they love Brady and how great Brady is on the podcast. It was nothing but a whole bunch of love for Brady, and also a whole bunch of concern about Audrey and Lulu, and they were just super into how great Brady is. It was a strange experience to be their son and to feel like, let's talk about Brady some more. So,
do they, I mean, clearly they have never met me, or they would think very differently, but do they not ask about you? And like, do they not say, oh, I love that little joke you made, or that was a really good point you made on the podcast? Or
okay, so to give you an example of the kind of comment that I had while I was home, my mother said numerous times that you are really likable, and she wanted to know why I could not be more likable like Brady. She goes, everybody likes Brady, not everybody likes you.
That's clearly not true. She's obviously not reading the Reddit comments.
She's reading I think she's reading the reviews on iTunes, which are very pro Brady, and then sometimes pro me, sometimes anti me. But that's okay. That's okay. But anyway, the point is, they love and adore you. So I may very well actually find myself without any standby tickets the next time I try flying, because all of them have been given to you. That might be the case.
Oh, that would be nice. I don't want to drive a wedge between you and your family, but I probably would for standby tickets.
Fair enough.
Also, you might have to cut this next bit out, because I'm going to specifically thank your dad for giving me those Harry's razor blades.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And I know he made a big deal about it not being a big deal. Because like, for those who don't know, I can't get my Harry's razor blades here in the UK yet because they're not delivering here. But Gray's dad got me a secret stash and sent them with Gray, and they were waiting for me. And they were given to me on the condition that I not thank him or email him or do anything, because it sounds like he's a pretty humble guy.
Well, two things about this. One, I will take this moment to point out that there were no presents waiting for me when I came home, but there was a present that I was supposed to deliver to you. So, and my parents know how much I hate carrying extra stuff in my luggage. But this was, no, you need to bring these to Brady because we really like him. And the second thing is that my family, we haven't really done gifts for birthdays or holidays for a very long time. And it's just because we're not, as a whole family, we're not a real we heart stuff kind of family. So we don't have a whole bunch of needs. And so then trying to buy stuff for a bunch of other people who also don't want anything makes for a difficult holiday. And so everybody was a lot happier when we decided, you know what, let's just get together instead of doing all of these things. As a result of this, if my parents do give a gift, they feel like they don't want to burden the other person with having to now thank them. So that's why my father was very insistent that if I give you these razor blades, I need to make it clear how things work in this family. And it is that you have no obligation to send him a thank you, and that he will probably be slightly annoyed if you send him a thank you because you are wasting your time.
All right. Well, then I'm going to say, Mr. Gray, I have no comment on those razor blades you sent whatsoever. Right. I'm just going to be silent on the matter. Although, if your family has this kind of, if no one likes getting presents and gifts, but these holidays exist as a sort of a gift-giving time, why don't you start a new tradition of everyone in your family buying me a gift?
You always want the things. You want my 1,000,000 subscriber button. You want gifts from my parents. I think we need to start setting some boundaries, Brady.
I don't know. I've got a present. I've got the present from your family. I think your gold button's next. Maybe not.
Good.
Maybe I'm pushing my luck. Let's move on. Let's talk about a place that was easy to go to, and that was Alabama, where we went and hung out with our friends and had a fantastic time. Did we not have a great trip to Alabama?
I have to say it was an amazing experience.
It was.
I was very happy to go, and I feel like the five of us we get along very well. I feel like we've clicked since the very first time that we met up in Canada at the Perimeter Institute.
To a certain extent, that is true.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
We don't mind a good argument about things.
But that's part of the clicking, right? Is you can have an argument with somebody, Derek, and you don't feel like you're hurting each other's feelings, or at least
true.
Or at least I don't think Derek feels that way. I don't know. I mean, maybe no. I made him cry in his room at night or something. But I feel like I had nothing but love to express to Derek, even if we're arguing a whole bunch.
Well, he's the one doing the arguing, so I hope he's not going back and crying in his room. He makes me look lovely when it comes, and I think I'm a pretty argumentative guy.
I think we're all argumentative in our own way, and we're all very particular in our own way. But I still think we just get along really well, and so that's why when Destin first arranged this, it was like, I will come, I will make time in my schedule for this, no questions asked. And even though it was absolutely exhausting, if Destin said, I want to try to arrange this again for next month, I would be on board without a doubt. I would go quite happily. Even though it'll probably take me a week to recover from the trip, it was glorious. It was absolutely glorious.
Do you know what's most exhausting about hanging out with you guys?
What?
And you're not as guilty of this as some of the others, but this is just a thing. You don't get away with anything. Like if you misspeak or mispronounce something or use a bit of hyperbole you shouldn't, or say something that is incorrect, which happens all the time. Normally when you're talking to normal people and they say something and they don't need correcting, either because they don't need correcting or because they just misspoke and they know the correct information. You just kind of let that go. You just don't say anything. That's what normal people do. That doesn't happen when we're hanging out. If you say something wrong, or whether by mistake or just misspeaking, you're gone, man. That's not good. That's not just going to slide by. These are guys who enjoy accuracy.
Yes, that is definitely true. And Destin was busy telling us a whole bunch of local stories about Huntsville and the various places that he was taking us. And Derek was right behind him with his iPhone fact-checking the stories as they were being told.
He was too.
On numerous occasions.
Yeah, like Desmond saying, this place is famous for being, the tallest tree south of the Mississippi or something, and then Derek would be, well, actually, it's the third tallest. And
that same kind of personality trait is also why I just absolutely adore hanging out with you guys whenever I get the chance. And I think what really set things off on the right foot was when Derek and Destin were picking me up from the airport. So I was the second person to arrive. And so they picked me up from the airport. We've done the initial, oh, hi, how are yous? And we're not in the car 3 minutes before all of us are having a conversation about how the highway numbering system works, how the interstate highway numbering system works. And I thought, I love this. This doesn't happen with anybody else. Everybody else, there'd be this whole big, boring, how was your trip? How did things go? Sort of like we started the podcast with, right?
Yeah.
But with them, it's you can almost guarantee that any conversation is going to turn both very interesting and super nerdy really fast, because somebody knows something about something or other. And you just, among the five of us, you just need someone to make an offhanded comment, and boom, we're in deep on how the highway numbering system works, or what are the editing rules for Wikipedia, or just numerous other topics that came up. And that is why I absolutely love hanging out with you guys. And it was just great. But it is kind of mentally exhausting after a whole week. Especially for someone like me who barely socializes, who puts the socializing light bulb at the dimmest it can possibly be without being off, and then to suddenly have 6 days in a row of 18-hour days of talking to people. It is quite draining from my perspective, but totally worth it.
I'll tell you what was totally worth it for me, and this is going to make people jealous, because this is what I got to see while I was away with Gray. I got to see Gray wielding all manner of guns and handguns and AK-47s and just firing those bad boys at targets. And I think you loved it.
Yeah, we had a kind of special morning with Destin where Destin, when he arranged this, asked people various things that they might want to do. And so there was a whole bunch of options. And one of those options was to learn how to fire a gun. And I had never fired a gun in my whole life. And I was thinking later, it is quite possible that I had never touched an active firearm in my life. You know, something that is outside of a museum.
Touch the gun, Gray.
It was one of these things where I thought, well, I've never done this before. And I know and very much respect how very serious Destin is about gun safety. This is no joke. We've had some conversations about it. He takes his stuff very, very seriously.
Oh, yeah.
And so I thought, well, I'm never going to go to a gun range just on my own and to have some dude I don't know tell me about guns. So I looked at Destin and I thought, that is the man I'm going to lose my gun virginity with. And he was very gentle, and it was a great experience.
It was good. It's like he gave us a little lesson on each gun before we used it on how it worked, and then he gave us a little safety briefing on each one, and then basically he said, go on then. And we loaded those bad boys up and bang, bang, bang.
Yeah.
But it was so much fun seeing you who, like, I don't know, like it was fun for all of us, and we all had a good time, but there was something particularly amusing to me about seeing you firing, especially those handguns.
I don't see why there's anything amusing about that. I don't
know. It was just like, I don't know. It was just a funny sight.
The thing that I have to say that was most surprising about that, again, someone who's just never shot guns, has no experience with this, is when it started out, Destin set up a bunch of little orange targets. And I want to say that the first ones were maybe 40 or 50 meters away. I don't know. Is that fair? I have a hard time estimating distances.
It depends on the story you're going to tell about how far away I'm going to say they were.
The far away ones, I think 50 meters. Yeah. 40 or 50 sounds about fair.
Okay.
And Destin came out and he said, oh, don't worry. You're going to be hitting these little, 10 centimeter across targets in no time. And I thought, no way, buddy. Did you know how far away that is? It looks like a dot on my field of vision. I would need to train for years to hit one of those targets. And much to my surprise, guns are designed to make it easy to shoot things accurately. Yeah. So it's like, oh, as long as I'm not moving around too much, and if I can line up the sights with the target, I actually have a decent chance of hitting something that seems way too far away to actually hit. So
it's not like Angry Birds where you've got to arc it through the air. The bullet's going to go in a pretty straight line the whole way.
Yeah, honest to God, that was kind of what I was thinking. Is like, well, it's going to take a long time, and I'll need to get a feel for the gun. Nope, they're designed to shoot things accurately, and so if someone teaches you how to use it, you can hit things relatively accurately. Now, I'm not saying I hit every one of the targets, but I was surprised that I hit any of the targets. I was genuinely shocked.
Ladies and gentlemen, I can assure you, Gray did not hit that many of the targets.
But that's what I mean. I am surprised I hit any of them. I thought there's no way we could be here for weeks before I would hit one of those targets. But no, it was quite remarkable. So
yeah, you were knocking them off, and you even knocking a few off with the handgun, which was pretty impressive.
That was a fun Alabama experience. Did
you have a favorite weapon?
Well, I think we both had a favorite weapon. So I like the P22. Handgun, and I don't remember what the name of yours was, but yours seemed very...
I liked lots of them. I tended to like the one I was holding at the time the most. And it was like, oh, I can't imagine one being more enjoyable than this.
But know the one I'm talking about. It was like the 6-shooter one.
Oh, yeah, the... what's it called? Is it something 45 special or something?
I think that's right. This should show the listeners how much we know about this.
Destin will be screaming at his podcast app right now. I'm going to look up what it was called so I get it right. Yeah, I did like that one. It was something special.
I think that's
45
right.
special.
That sounds right.
That was pretty cool. Although, no, that's not right because it's not calling up many pictures. I don't know. It was that revolver. No, I also liked that one that when we fired the dragon breath at the end, that had a real big kick to it. I like that one that was like
the shotgun? You mean the shotgun?
Yeah, but the one that was kind of an AK-47 version of a shotgun.
Okay.
This
is one of these things where it is difficult to describe, but there were just so many guns.
What's an arsenal of guns? Is that the collective name?
There was just this table of guns of all various sizes and shapes. It's not like, we can't remember the names of the two guns. We must have fired 10 different kinds of guns, at least. So it was definitely it was a very memorable experience. I enjoyed it a lot. And if you ever have to learn about gun safety, I would highly recommend Destin as the man to do it with. He was very serious and also very, very accepting as a teacher when I would do something dumb, like try to shoot with the safety on, or just like other just idiotic things. So he was very good.
He was excellent. And in true style, we did spend the hour driving to the site talking about gun laws and stuff in the US. so we had this big heated debate about the pros and cons of gun laws and where we all stood on it. Mm-hmm. And then basically we got out of the car and said, all right, let's load them up. Which was kind of funny, but anyway, it was a good experience and it was done very safely and we were very grateful for it.
Yes.
We had a great dinner with his parents that night too. What wonderful people all his family were. They were so kind and nice, and Tara, his wife, organising everything, and they were so good. I feel really bad that they were so nice. I can't imagine I could ever be that nice a host.
Well, this is exactly. I struggle to put into words Destin's family. It's almost like they are the perfect family out of a Disney movie. The whole extended family. Everybody is really great. Everybody is really polite, and everybody is really nice. And it was honestly just overwhelming. I always find it, because I come from a pretty small family. I always find it really interesting to see other people's families and how they interact. And I have to say, this was just a great big family, and it was quite an experience, and we felt really welcome the whole time. And I was just overwhelmed.
But perhaps the most important and the one of the great discoveries from Destin's family was a delicacy that was prepared for us on multiple occasions.
And it was prepared for us on one occasion, and for you explicitly, I think, on several other occasions. I think that's the way it went.
And I'm not going to describe it because you will accuse me of exaggerating. Do you want to describe this delicacy, which apparently is a bit of a family tradition in Destin's family, and I thought was the finest dessert I've ever encountered?
Okay, so this tray appears one of the evenings.
A huge tray as well, the size of a dinner table.
Yeah. This tray appears, and it looks like it is just strawberries on the top in a little bit of strawberry sauce, but there is a surprise underneath.
That's like Jell-O. It's like set in Jell-O, isn't it?
Yeah. It's kind of like Jell-O on the top with strawberries, but very intense strawberry flavor.
Yeah.
But underneath the layer of strawberries, there is a layer of whipped cream, which is like, okay, so far so good. I can understand this. This is understandable. But then the bottom layer is crunchy pretzels, which doesn't seem like it fits with the other two. And we ended up having a big argument over how to quantify the tastiness of this dessert, which again sounds ridiculous when I say it out loud, but this really was like an hour of our evening was arguing over, on a 1 to 10 scale, how delicious is this dessert? And you were taking a very strong 9, possibly 10 stance.
No. I never said 10. I was going 9, and then I maybe downgraded to 8 just to leave myself some wiggle room. But the thing that disappointed me was some of the others gave it too low a mark, basically. And the whole time they were giving it this too low a mark, they were just downing the stuff by the bowl. Henry must have had 3 bowls of the stuff. It was fantastic. It was one of the real discoveries of my trip to Alabama.
Yeah, well, all of the food in Alabama was delicious. Now, as the listeners may guess, I am a relatively picky eater. I don't like to try new foods. I like things real consistent, especially if it's going in my body. But I have to say, Alabama was probably one of the only places on earth I have ever been where I felt like, whatever, just order the food. At one restaurant, I even delegated the power of my order to Destin, which is something I would never do anywhere on earth under any circumstance. But I was like, you know what? I have been here 4 days. Everything is delicious. I don't have any idea what to order on this menu. You just do it, dude. And he ordered a whole bunch of stuff. And I was like, this is all delicious. This is all amazing. So Alabama, thumbs up on your food. I gained 5 pounds in a week from eating everything. It was amazing, but I could not live there because I would obviously die of some kind of obesity-related disease if I spent 2 or 3 years down in Alabama. So excellent place to visit, but I could not possibly live there because the food is too good.
So, I mean, the main reason we went was just to hang out with friends, and we did this shooting, and we ate this yummy jello, and we went into a cave, and we went to a football match, and we did this amazing tour of NASA, the Marshall Space Center that was arranged. But another big thing we did, of course, was the Random Acts of Intelligence show at the Rocket Center, which 600 people came to.
Yeah, well, to back this up, I have a couple lessons about Destin. The first, we've already mentioned on, I think, one of the extras to this podcast, which is do not discuss potential titles for videos with Destin unless you have a full working day to give over to that project.
Yeah.
So you will be engaged in this conversation for forever. And the other lesson that I learned on this trip is do not agree to do something with Destin on the premise that it is going to be small. I think Destin can only do things all the way. Yeah. And so I went back and looked at the old emails, and it started as, oh, hey, let's have this trip just together in Alabama, and we're just going to hang out, and isn't that going to be great? And then over time, it progressed to, hey, maybe we should have an informal meetup in a park with some people who might want to meet up with us if we just say something on Twitter. And then it was, ooh, maybe we could do at a university, like a little panel. And then it kept ratcheting up in this way when I wasn't paying close enough attention to all of a sudden, I felt like I did not understand the full scale of this thing until I was actually in Alabama and it was tomorrow. Where I was like, oh, we have the Space and Rocket Center, and there's going to be a Saturn V rocket above us, and there's going to be 600 people, and there's a huge screen, and there's audio visual checks to be done. It just turned into this enormous thing.
So, and we were greeted by the local tourist authority. It was like a big deal.
Yeah, the whole thing was just crazy. And I kept thinking, I don't remember signing up for any of this. I don't exactly know how I got here. And it is somewhat nerve-wracking to see how real this thing is. If that had been presented to me at the start, I would have said, no way, are you crazy? I'm not going to do that. But somehow, Destin just kept ratcheting it up a little bit over the months, and you never say no at any particular point, and suddenly you find yourself on stage in front of 600 people for the first time. So, yeah. But it was, again, it was a great event, but it was surprising how much effort Destin was able to put into it and how well he was able to pull off the whole thing when it started as just oh, maybe we'll do a thing. So, yes.
You know how I was joking before about how if I was flying first class, I'd want Scarlett Johansson giving me peanut M&Ms and all this sort of stuff. If I was going to put on a show and I was joking around and you said, where do you want your stage to be, Brady? I would say to you, all right, here's the stage I want, Gray, make this happen. I want a Saturn V rocket above my head, suspended from the ceiling. And then I would say, I want a real Apollo lunar landing module and lunar rover to my left. I want a real Apollo return capsule that brought men back from the moon to my right. In fact, put a moon rock there as well while you're at it. I want Apollo memorabilia in every corner. I want the parachute from an Apollo lunar module sitting above my right shoulder. Make that happen. And you would laugh at me.
I would.
And that is exactly what we had.
Yeah.
It was like Brady fantasy stage. The only thing that would have been more amazing was if halfway through Scarlett Johansson appeared and started giving me peanut M&Ms.
Or she gives you a Speedmaster. That's what Scarlett Johansson comes up and gives.
They did bring a Speedmaster on stage for me, so that part was covered. I guess they could have brought a tray of that pretzel jelly strawberry stuff on stage. That didn't happen during the show, but I did have some afterwards back at home.
Yeah, it really was the perfect Brady stage. I have a hard time imagining that there will ever be a stage that you could love more than that one.
Yeah. So, as is known, this was deliberately something we didn't want to make a big recording of, and this was a live show. It wasn't a video. So I don't think we're going to, rabbit on for ages about what we did and things like that, because, maybe this will happen again one day, although I doubt it listening to some of your comments. But one thing that we should talk about, because it's quite interesting, is the fact that you were there. You were on stage. I mean, you don't make a big deal about public appearances and plaster yourself all over your videos and post photos of yourself like the rest of us show-offs. So this was something a bit different for you, and I think a fair proportion of people who were there were quite curious about seeing you come out from your little editing cave and appear in public. How was that experience for you?
Yeah, I think it felt really natural. I almost feel like we couldn't talk a lot about the night because, from my perspective, it went so fast. It's a bit like on one of the previous podcasts I mentioned how I would have no memory of my wedding if it had not been recorded, and I do have memories of the Space and Rocket Center talk because obviously it was not as intense as my wedding was. That's a whole other level, but it was a very, very intense evening still. And so it felt like the thing just went by so fast, and there are little details that I remember about it, but it would almost be difficult to actually talk about the thing in its entirety. But yeah, I did appear in person at this event, and I think it went well. And afterwards, after the actual event itself, we ended up, all 5 of us ended up signing posters and T-shirts and stuff for about 2 hours, I think.
It was crazy. It was crazy.
It was absolutely crazy. I was trying to estimate how many people it was, and I'm thinking, okay, I probably saw something like 2 or 3 people a minute, and it was 2 hours of signing at the least, and so that's something like 250 people at a minimum, maybe 400 people at a maximum. I don't know. That's a lot of people to say hello to. And
we had to sign iPhones.
Oh man.
I did not expect that to happen.
I did not expect that to happen either. And so the setup here is that after the show, we went out into the kind of lobby of the Space and Rocket Center, and it felt just mobbed. There were just people everywhere. And I ended up being in a corner with a kind of semicircle of people around me and just pulling people out and signing and saying hello and shaking hands and all this stuff. Like, that went really well. That was really nice. But I do remember the first guy who came up to me and said, "I want you to sign my iPhone." And I thought, dude, I don't know if I can handle this kind of pressure.
And just to be clear, this is with a pen.
Yeah, with a permanent marker.
On the back of the phone.
On
not
the
on
actual
the screen.
iPhone. Yeah. On the metal part on the back.
That was strange.
Yeah, I don't know if I can handle this, but I did say, okay, if you look me in the eyes, man, and you tell me that you're really okay with this, I'm going to do it. And so he did, and I signed it. And I have to say, signing an iPhone is a very pleasurable experience. The back is nice and solid. The pen moves nice and smoothly. Compared to signing something like a T-shirt, signing an iPhone is a total joy. So I made this comment, and a bunch of people around heard this, and then I ended up, by my count, signing 4 iPhones in total over that event, because other people were like, "Oh, do you want to sign my iPhone?" And I thought, well, once you sign one, you've broken through that isn't this terrifying barrier. Sure, I'll sign everybody's iPhone. This is way better than signing posters.
I feel a bit bad about the one I signed because...
Did you mess it up? Did you mess up that man's phone?
No, I didn't mess it up, but I mean, obviously what happened was a lot of people sort of went around to all 5 of us and just got them to sign things like a poster and stuff like that, to have the collection of people who were there. But the first time I was asked to sign the phone, and I was well aware that, a lot of people were there not to see me. In fact, more people were probably there to see, the Derricks and the Destins, because they're like big superstars, and the CGP Grey because he's a mystery man. No, anyway, that's
you make me
okay. No, okay. That's
false humility.
Okay, sorry, false humility. False humility. Let me get back to my humble brag. So the thing. So this guy pulls out his phone and says, "Will you sign my iPhone?" And I think I was the first person asked to do it, because you obviously got a whole bunch of others after you made your comment, but this was like the first one I'd seen, and it was unsigned. And I said, like you said, "Are you serious? You want me to sign your phone?" And he was like, "Yeah, I do." So I was like, Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Whereabouts? And he sort of pointed vaguely to an area. So I signed it, and I signed it really big in the middle. And it never occurred to me that he was going to take that phone to be signed by the rest of you, which of course that should have occurred to me. Why would he just want me to sign it? Mm-hmm. So later on, when a picture was posted, like to Twitter or something, of the phone signed by everyone, there's kind of my giant signature in the middle. And like there's CGP Grey and Derek and Destin, all like, you guys are all like on the edges, on the writing and everything. And I've hogged the best spot. So
you are the John Hancock of that phone.
Exactly. I hope he came to me first because he wanted me most, because I am in the middle. But I tell you what, those few hours though, obviously it was very self-selecting, and these people had come because they wanted to see us. So, but it did give you a taste for a couple of hours of what it must be like to be like a well-known person. Mm-hmm. And it made me realize, like, I loved it talking to all these people and doing this, but I also liked that after 2 or 3 hours it stopped.
Yes.
And I can't imagine what it must be like to be like Brad Pitt or someone, and just everywhere you go, that is the default.
Yes. This is a topic you know very well. I want to talk about more in detail at some point. But
cool.
But yes,
yeah.
I would reaffirm this, that, you know, people think being famous is awesome, and it's like, yes, it can be awesome for an afternoon. But if your whole life was like this, it's a nightmare. It would just be terrible. And so, yes, it was really great that there was a group of people who wanted to come, and that we could legitimately spend some time with those people. And even after the 2 hours of signing, we then went, there was like an after show at the Marriott where people were just having drinks. And so we went over there and just hung out, and it was really great to be able to kind of go around to some tables and just have some chill conversations with people, and like that was also a really nice experience. But I highly value in my normal life being able to just go somewhere and people don't know me. So yes, like this is great under limited circumstances, but it would not be great in your life in general. But I do have to say, and the reason why I wanted to shut you down before about people, just not coming to see you, which was my experience, was almost everybody who came, the very first thing that they mentioned was the podcast and how they listened to the two of us, and they really liked it. And I found that just very notable and very interesting, that there was really strong Hello Internet listener presence at the Random Acts event. And I thought that was really interesting, and just lots of people saying how much they liked the podcast. And that was one time I felt like, oh, this is really nice. I'm glad people like it. So
I would have preferred it though if they'd said, like, I don't know who that CGP Grey Joker is, but I think Numberphile and Periodic Videos are just awesome. No, it was fun. You obviously posed for like loads of selfies and stuff like that with people, which was and you know, this is obviously, these are going to just, you know, find their way around the places. People share things like people do.
Yeah.
You're cool with that. You've got no problem with, you know, because you do value your privacy, but you've just sort of said, oh well, there we go.
Well, so the thing about this is, as you might imagine, I have thought about this kind of decision for a while. And someone asked during the event if I was okay with pictures, and I said yes. So, you know, obviously it's fine. So yeah, if you go on Twitter now, you can search for pictures of what I look like. I still recommend that you don't. Like, I wrote that article about the Faceless Voices, laying out my reasons for from my experience, lots of podcasts I listen to or audiobook narrators I listen to, I prefer to not know what they look like.
Yeah.
And so I wrote an article trying to tell people that, and I have actually received more than a few emails from people saying that they have regretted their decision to go find out what I look like. And I understand that. I don't take that as they're horrified by how horrifically ugly I am or anything. It's like, no, I get that. I completely understand that feeling of it's kind of better when you don't know the person. But some people really do want to know. And so if you do, you can go on Twitter and search for the pictures, and I'm sure you'll find them and they'll come up. But yeah, it was something that I was thinking about for a long time, and it was really, really ever since I crossed the 1 million subscriber mark, I noticed that I was starting to have a lot of anxiety about trying to keep my picture off of the internet, which of course is just an impossible task. And also, I am no fool. You look at the trend lines of technology, like, we are not heading into a world that is more private in the future. We are heading into a world that is less private in the future. Yeah. And so if you are a person who does any kind of work in the public sphere, you can't have the same kind of control over your anonymity that you would as a normal person, because even normal people have a difficult time with that. So I guess I was having a lot of just stress about trying to keep that tamped down. And yeah. I also just want to say, trying to keep pictures off the internet, that was something that I was doing. But there is also like this whole team of other people who I have interacted with over the years who have also helped me with this. And I cannot possibly name all of them. But I do just want to say, like, my ability to keep my picture off of the internet was not a one-man project. There are a lot of people who helped me with this and helped take old stuff down, or just helped protect my anonymity in some way. So I do want to say just a huge thanks to all of the people who did help with that. Like it meant quite a lot to me. After the 1 million subscribers, I could feel the tide changing on this, that there was just too many people. And so it's like economics with Gray. The stress of trying to maintain this was beginning to outweigh the personal benefits of the anonymity. In a perfect world, I would remain anonymous forever. But of course, that's not the world that we actually live in. And so I thought, well, I have to do this in at some point in some way. And then this is when Destin started talking about doing an event. And I thought, oh, this kind of works out perfectly. And I have to say, my experience now is that I am just hugely relieved to not be stressed out about this anymore. Because I used to just get kind of very anxious sometimes when people would send me emails that were something about my picture. And I thought like, oh God, what is this? What am I going to have to worry about now? Or, just like, I am very happy to have that part of my life be over. But sort of related to the fame thing, like we mentioned before, I still have a hard time imagining I'm ever going to be actively promoting me. Like, I don't think I'm going to be in my own videos. I like doing the animations and I think they work. And I probably won't put my own picture on my about page on my website.
I did have a brief experience with this a few weeks back with the Mile of Pi video. Because obviously you were there and found your way into various shots because you were helping out basically. And I did say to you, do you want me to go through with a fine-tooth comb and take you out and censor you? And you'd obviously had reached this decision already, and you just said to me, look, just leave it. So obviously
I told you that I wouldn't be there if it wasn't okay for me to be in background shots. Because it wouldn't be fair for me to go to this thing and then tell you, oh, you have to spend an enormous amount of time and effort making sure that you digitally erase me from every shot. Yeah.
But I did find it funny and mildly creepy, but more funny, that obviously people figured this out because we talked about the video on the podcast, and the lengths people went to on that video to sort of isolate who you were. Like, they would go through like the credits of who was there, and then like do this sort of process of elimination, and they were taking screen grabs and they were using like aerial shots to figure out what you were wearing. It was like CSI.
Yeah. And that kind of stuff is totally creepy. Like, there's no way to look at that. And even though the people have the best intentions, it just feels subjectively creepy. And so, yes, I am very happy that for stuff like that in the future, if the conversation comes up where people go, oh, which one is CGP Grey? Someone can just link to one of the pictures on Twitter and go, that's CGP Grey.
If you must know, there he is.
It's this one. But we don't have to start like tracking down everybody who's appeared in this video and putting them up on a cork board with strings connecting to different addresses and stuff. Like, we don't need to do that anymore. We just know, and it's fine. So I'm happy to have that situation be different now.
I love that you went for the corkboard and the strings, like the very un-Grey like way of doing it. That's kind of cute.
That's the way crazy people look in movies.
Yeah, that's right. No, they would have it like in 3D, and there'd be strings all across their room, and you wouldn't be able to walk through the room because they've done it all
hero style.
Yeah. Although it is, some people like as you said, you were asked during the show, oh, do you mind if we post pictures and stuff. And you said, no. I mean, you jokingly said I think you said like it was your coming out or something.
Yeah.
That got a nice laugh. And yet some people are still posting pictures from the event, like their selfies with you, and they're like censoring out your face. Like they're putting something, maybe they don't like what you look like.
Well, what I love about that, I did not expect that. And I saw a whole bunch of people do that exact same thing where they posted the picture of them with me, but they put the stick figure over my face.
Yeah.
It never occurred to me that people would do that, but I thought, oh, this is great because I can retweet these photos. Like, look at these pictures from this event. And so I have to say, I really got a big laugh out of that. I really enjoyed that. And I just thought it was really funny. And people did do funny things when we were actually signing stuff. One guy wanted me to hold the poster over my face and took a picture of me, hold it, like him next to me with the poster over my, like, I'm not even sure what the point of this picture is, but I'm glad it makes you happy. There were a few funny things like that. So I have to say, I genuinely enjoyed the experience of meeting everybody, no matter how briefly, in that signing section, and just talking to fans of the show or people who like the videos. Like that was a much better experience than I expected it to be. I expected it to just be really draining, which it was. But I did not expect that it could also be as fun as it turned out to be. And I hope it was fun for everybody who was there.
And for those who couldn't make it or would like to have made it, I'm sure one day something will happen where you two can take a photo of Gray's face covered with a poster.
Yeah, that's the ideal thing to do.
We must make sure we do something again sometime one of these days, because it was fun.
Yeah, I hope Destin arranges something again. I'm just going to delegate it to Destin to do.
Oh, goodness knows what he'll do. It'll probably be literally held on the moon next time. He'll be like, oh, yeah, the rocket center wasn't close enough to a lunar environment this time. I want to go all the way.
That's a good point. I think maybe I will delegate the next one to Henry. Henry should arrange the next one. People who go to Dulles, if you ever have to change terminals, it is a unique experience because I don't quite know how to describe these things, but in a normal airport, there would be some sort of underground tunnel or perhaps a little tram. No. At Dulles, they have these things that are like tanks, maybe crossbred with AT-ATs, that are these just huge, mobile, ugly industrial buses.
Dude, you're making me want to go there if I'm going to get to ride on an AT-AT, or an AT-AT as I would call it.
Yeah, it's not nearly that cool.
No.
But they basically they're like elevated buses at the level of the terminal, and they pull right up to the terminal, and there's like a docking port for them, and they shove everybody in like a bunch of sardines. And then this thing drives across all of the space where the airports are. It drives across the space where the airplanes are. It drives like across a runway or something. I don't know exactly. And takes you to this other terminal.
How high are they? High off the ground then? How high off the ground are they?
Yeah, they are at airplane boarding height.
Well, how are they touching the ground? What do they like drive on, or what? It sounds bizarre.
They're very strange. Here we go.
Oh yeah, that is kind of, yeah. It looks like a Humvee or something in a way. Like,
that's why I say it's bizarre, and the experience of riding in one. What it made me think of is the opening scene to Saving Private Ryan and D-Day.
Yeah,
because they load you in at the back. And then it pulls into the terminal, and it's like that front flap just falls forward and everybody has to rush out. I was like, oh, are Nazis going to shoot me? Right? As soon as this thing opens up, it's just like, it is such a terrible, terrible experience, these things. They're just bizarre, and they seem unique to Dulles. I've never seen them anywhere else.
Do you know what they remind me of? They remind me of something I've been on that's much more pleasant at a place called Berg Island down in the southwest of England here. There's a little quaint island with a hotel on it where you can go and stay, and Agatha Christie used to write books there, and there's kind of this Art Deco place. But to get over when it's high tide, you can walk over at low tide, but when it's high tide, it kind of gets cut off from the mainland, and they have this little tractor on wheels with like just a platform, and you stand up on the platform and the rest of the tractor like goes underwater, and you're just standing on this platform that's above the water. And that's actually really lovely because there's just 5 or 6 of you on it, and you're going to a lovely Art Deco hotel. But this is kind of the bad version of it that you're sharing here.
Yeah. It's like you're on a cattle car between airport terminals. It's just terrible. Okay, but so here's the thing. So like these things are just terrible. But as with everything in the universe, like stuff just doesn't happen for no reason. Somebody wasn't just like, hey, I know, let's try to come up with a terrible way to transport people from one terminal to another. So in my Wikipedia rabbit holing here, I came across this video, which is kind of worth watching. And it is the video promoting what Dulles Airport is going to be back in I think it's like the early 60s is this video.
Right.
And okay, so this is almost going to be hard to describe. But so what they're very concerned about is, boy, aren't airports getting big and don't people have to walk a tremendous amount of distance? And how can we come up with some new system so people don't have to walk as much to get to their airplanes? And so here was the idea. They said, okay. Instead of having these long corridors and the planes are lined up at each of and the planes are lined up along these corridors, what we're going to do is instead we're just going to kind of have one big gathering area for all of the passengers who want to get on planes. And we're going to make these things that are called mobile lounges. And the idea is that there's just going to be this whole big docking station. So however many terminals however many gates the airport would have, say it was going to have 20 gates, there would just be on one wall of the main area 20 doors that you can walk through. And each of these mobile lounges on wheels are going to pull up to one of those doors, and it'll just tell you which door to go through to get to your plane. And the idea is everybody boards onto this mobile lounge, which is then, since it's at plane height, going to drive directly to the plane, dock with the plane, and just dump people on there. Right? And when you watch the video, it's like, that's actually kind of a genius idea. This could totally work. And it is also hilarious because the video talks about how absolutely luxurious these things are going to be. And it's like, yes, but I have ridden in one, right? It's like, this is awful. I know what like the shape of things to come. But in the meantime, it's showing this cartoon guy who's like, lounging on this couch. It looks almost comical in the video. But so anyway, it's like, this is an interesting idea to have a row of basically buses that can dock directly with airplanes and drop people off. And then you can restructure the whole way the airport is set up, and it can be much smaller and people have to move around less. So this is an interesting idea. And so they started to build Dulles like this, but apparently the problem is that this is just before the era of when planes became much bigger.
Right.
And also some rule changes came in with deregulation that allowed basically airliners to change the way they manage their routes. And so just as they were building this thing, it sort of became obsolete. And then for unknown reasons, they kind of doubled down at Dulles of we're going to build another really long terminal that is also for planes that are like a generation too old and that are way too small. And so the bottom line is it was a really interesting idea at exactly the wrong time. And then to try to fix it, they thought, we can double capacity at this airport. But the thing that you need is spaces for way bigger planes. You don't need more space for smaller planes. And so this leads us to today, where I found a couple of other articles just talking about how all of the air traffic at Dulles is going down and nobody likes to use it and it's awful and the whole airport is just in jeopardy and they just spent $1.5 billion trying to make a train to it. It just looks like the whole place is a nightmare. But anyway, I just thought that this mobile lounge notion is an interesting logistics solution to moving people around at an airport that was just at the wrong time. And I love the idea that these horrible, horrible transports are actually still called mobile lounges.
So it's a bit like an English town or something that's, built for horse and carts, and then cars are being invented and the town planners are going, nah, I'm sticking with building for horses. I think they're going to stay in fashion.
Yeah, it's a bit like they realize, people can travel around more because of all of these cars, so we better double the number of horse-sized roads that we have because people are going to come here and they're going to need to get around in our town. It's now it's just twice as bad as if you just left it alone. So that's kind of what it's like. But anyway, I thought this was very interesting. I'll put the video in the show notes. It is also just worth watching as a little piece of history. It's very strange to see something that is that old and talking about something turns out to be a total disaster.
Altogether, how many human minutes would you guess you spent reading about this airport and researching how bad it was and all its problems?
Less than an hour.
No.
Easy.
I've spent more than an hour on it. I don't even care.
Okay, so the new Kindle is out, the Kindle Voyager.
Let me guess, on this one you can't even see the words.
Well, it's like it is inches away from that, right? So here's what they said. Like, oh, I know. People loved that page turny thing, and everybody complained when we took it away. So let's give it back to people. But I know what we can do. Let's make a button better. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the worst part of a button and combine it with the worst part of a touchscreen and make a brand new input device on the bezel, which I don't even know what they call it. But here, imagine, here is the user experience for this. There's like these regions on the side of the Kindle that you're supposed to press to turn the page. So imagine taking your thumb and pressing it against a completely immobile surface, like a huge slab of marble on the floor of a palace or something, right? Like something really solid. And in order to turn the page of your book, instead of a nice click button, instead you have to smush your thumb against a completely rigid surface. And when you have smushed it enough, the page will turn.
So no give, no sound, just...
It is baffling to me that it will do this bizarre little vibrate thing as well. So every time you turn the page, it goes, bzz, right? To let you know, oh yes, we have registered that you have compressed your thumb hard enough against the side of our screen in order to turn the page. It's just, okay, so I took this out. Let's give this a fair shot. I really want to love the Kindle. Took it out. I load up a book on it. I pressed the button once on this, or not the button. I pressed the immobile slab on the side once. And I go, like, I swear to God, it was physically uncomfortable. And then it vibrates in this startling way. I go, what person, what designer, presumably Jeff Bezos saw this thing. Who came up with this at Amazon? Who on earth approved of this at Amazon? Why was there nobody who said, hey, you know what would be a good idea? A button, like we used to do, that everybody loved. I swear to God, the existence of these pressure-sensitive regions honestly makes me doubt the judgment of everybody in upper management at Amazon. The fact that this thing came into existence just blows my mind. And so I thought, like, okay. Maybe my first experience with this is just horrible. Let me try to give it a good go. So I sat down. I'm like, usually I read in little 20-minute bursts. So I sat down like, okay, I'm going to read for 20 minutes. I'm going to use my Kindle. I'm going to use a little button thing that they want me to use on the side. I could not make it 20 minutes using this thing because my thumb started to get a little bit physically uncomfortable. And I realized, oh, what this thing actually is, it's a repetitive strain injury creation device. Like that is the function that this thing serves. Like I can feel it. Like I've had repetitive strain injury before. You know what like the warning signs are like. And it's like, oh yes, compressing my thumb several thousand times over the course of a year against a completely rigid surface is going to give me repetitive strain injury. Guarantee it. And so that's what this thing on the side is. It's just baffling to me. I don't know how anyone could ever look at it and think it was a good idea. It's just so crazy that I feel like, well, Amazon, it's been a good run, but I think this is where we have to part ways. Like,
you've got to wonder how the wheel would have turned out if Amazon had invented it.
I know. It's just like, oh, I know, we'll make a wheel, but we'll put spikes all around the edge of it so it's really grippy on the road. And it's just like, I don't know. It's just...
What are you going to do? Because, like, are you going to start reading on your iPad, or where do you go from here?
Yeah, so basically, I was hoping to get this Amazon Kindle before my trip to Alabama, but because Amazon also hates the UK and ships everything later here, I didn't get it in time. And so I ended up actually using my iPad to read on the trip and discovered many things that I do like about iBooks. It's still not an ideal solution in very many ways. But it's more a question of like, okay, well, there's a solution which is not perfect for me, but is fine, and that actually has many advantages over Amazon's system. I would want to use Amazon's system in an ideal world, but just like, you're demonstrating to me, Amazon, that you have lost your mind. And like, I want you to do these things like fix the left justification or to fix all of these various things about your system. But like, this physical piece of hardware demonstrates to me that you are just never going to do this. It's almost like, it's like asking someone to love you, right? Like, oh, please, Amazon, please love me and do the things that I want to, right? And they give you a turd in a bag. And if you stay at that point, well, it's not really Amazon's fault. It's your fault.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I feel at this moment, is like, I can't take this abuse anymore. This Kindle is just so awful. So I ordered the return box almost immediately. Like, I cannot believe this thing is just terrible.
Wow, returning it. I would never. If I don't like something, I just put it in a shelf and never use it. You actually return stuff.
Well, I think it's expensive enough, right? That it's worth returning. I wouldn't just stick it in a shelf, and then Amazon gets to keep my money. I feel like I need to send a message like, no, this is too much, Amazon. It's too much. I mean, there's just a million things about it which are terrible, but that button is just like the embodiment of terrible decisions, which just makes me doubt the whole company.
Is this just grey fussiness, or have you been hearing other people talk about this button in the same way?
I was curious because I was like, is this just me? Do I have a defective one? Can I change settings on this? Which you can. There's a whole bunch of settings you can try to change. There's a whole bunch of different ways you can try to adjust this. But universally, it has been panned. I haven't seen anybody who's written any kind of review that says that they like it. But again, if you ever are in a store and see one of these things, just touch it once and you'll immediately, it's like, it's just terrible. It's like I might as well put a thumbtack on the edge of the screen and say, oh, use this to turn the page. It's equally useless.
What are they thinking, Gray? Like, what's going on? Like, just for the sake of argument, tell me why you think it got approved. Like, what happened? Is it just did one person think, oh, we've got to do something different. If we don't do something different, we'll die. Is it a compulsion to do something different, or?
Well, here's again, I always say I try very hard when things seem strange to imagine what's happening in this other entity. And this is just my breaking point with Amazon. It's like, I cannot understand, or I cannot come up with any kind of rational reason for why they are behaving the way they are. And the other thing was, I think you saw it, but I tweeted their last bizarre product announcement, which was that Amazon Echo thing.
That is the freakiest, weirdest promotional video I've ever seen. I don't know what's going on.
So I'm going to say that for me, the Kindle Voyage is like the third strike in Amazon has lost its mind. Strike one was the Fire Phone, which I didn't think much of when it came out, but then I was just curious to see, what do people think of it? And it's just like unusably awful. It's just a terrible, terrible piece of equipment. It's like you can't even use this as a phone, even if you wanted to. Right. Strike two then was the Amazon Echo thing, and strike three is the Kindle. It's like these three things in a relatively short period of time just seriously make me doubt whoever is making decisions over there. The Echo thing, for those who haven't seen the video, I will put it in the show notes. No. I almost dare you to watch the whole thing. It is, even the commercial is so awkward. It's so painfully awkward to watch.
And someone watched it and signed off on that. Someone said, okay, yes, we are willing to release that to the public.
Yeah. It's the video is basically this family who gets a device, and you can, all it is it's basically Siri that plugs into your wall that isn't a phone that listens to you 24 hours a day from a particular location in your house.
Like Big Brother or something.
Yeah. And you can ask it all the same questions that you can ask Siri. Set a timer, how many cups in a quart or whatever. There's like minimally useful stuff, but not anything shockingly useful. It's like your phone can do all of this, except that your phone is on you all the time. It's just like, who is the person this product is for? I simply cannot imagine. And then they have the most terrible commercial in the whole world. And there's a little detail, which is one of these things where it's like, somebody over there has just lost their mind. So I have asked several people this when they watch the commercial. I go, what is the name of this product? And everybody gives the same wrong answer, because this little family in the commercial sets up this product, which is called Amazon Echo. But there's this like quick little 2-second thing where they say, oh, when you set it up, you have to give it a special name, and it only listens to you after you say that name. And so they name the thing Alexa, I think.
Right.
And so then you have this commercial, which is supposed to be selling a product, but they must say Alexa 100 times.
Yeah.
And they say the name of the product, Amazon Echo, maybe 5 times. And so everybody thinks it's Amazon's new Alexa project. It's like, no, this is just an incidental thing. But who could possibly, like, what person creating a commercial says, how can we say the product name less? Or how can we figure out how to make this more confusing? So it's just like, the Echo is crazy. The Kindle Voyager is just completely non-understandable. And especially they keep selling it in this way of like, oh, it's especially designed for someone who makes books. Like, have you seen someone read a book? Have you ever read a book? This product is clearly not designed for anybody who reads books. I don't understand it at all. I don't understand who the Echo is for. I don't understand how on earth you can be trying to sell your terrible phone and you can't even sell it now. They've reduced it to $1 to buy the phone. It's just like, it's embarrassing. And so these 3 things together, I feel like, I don't even feel safe having my digital books in Amazon's ecosystem. Like putting aside the whole justification issue and all the other problems they have, it's like, I can't count on you to fix anything. I don't feel good about buying books in your ecosystem anymore. And I'm going to give up on trying to make you love me, right? Like you're off the deep end and we need to separate. So,
with that, coming back to that Echo ad for just a second.
Oh, yeah.
It's so funny. If you had made that video and you said, Brady, I've just made this spoof video and I want you to watch it, I would think it was the best video you'd ever made. I'd say, you're a legend. It's so funny. It's so clever. It's like, it's so good at being bad.
Right.
That it's genius.
Yeah.
The only problem with that ad is that it's not a joke.
Yeah. That it's genuine. It's almost, it has that like Saturday Night Live feel to it.
Yes, exactly.
Like the family is just a little weird and a little off. And one of the things that I love is, okay, so again, trying to envision this product if you haven't seen the commercial. It is this black cylinder that spies on you that you have to plug into the wall.
Like even that seems like a joke.
I know. It's like all they need is to give it a menacing red ring around the edge, right? That like it's unbelievable. But then the whole like they keep doing like point of view shots from the Echo, and the way they do the camera work, it also looks like a joke because it's like the Echo pops up. So they show the couple sleeping in bed and the camera pans down. So suddenly the Echo is in front of the camera, like looming over them, looking at them sleeping in bed together.
Like you think the joke's going to continue and like in the next scene, the husband will come home from work early and his wife will be in bed with the Echo or something like that's where they're going.
Yeah. Or the next scene is him going to be driving in the car and they show the Echo like buckled into the passenger seat or something. Yeah. Like it's just like you can't believe it's real and it's just awful to watch. It's awful to watch. But again, it's like people signed off on this. They built it, they've made it, they've sold it. They hired a team of people to make this god awful commercial. Somebody watched the commercial and said, "Let's run that on the internet." Like that is why they just lost their minds.
People were given money for making that. People were given money for that.
Well, I mean, if I'm those actors, I feel like, hey, Amazon, I'll take your money. But someone at Amazon should look at that thing and just say, like, we're going to get slaughtered on the internet. People are going to laugh at us. Nobody is going to buy this ridiculous product because it doesn't serve any need for any human on the face of the earth. Like, who should get this Amazon Echo instead of just getting an Android phone? Nobody. No one anywhere.
I will accept, though, that if you make a good enough ad and trick me, maybe I will think I need one. Like, people will buy anything if it's promoted well enough and well marketed and is made to look cool. But then they've made a product that I don't really want look even worse.
Yeah. So I think an interesting exercise is, I showed this to my wife because I was like, you have to watch this ad. Like, you're not going to believe this. And I had to preface it with, it is not a joke. This is for real. And then as an interesting compare and contrast thing, I'm not trying to hold Apple up here as an amazing example, but we went back and we said, what were the first ads for Siri when Siri first came out? And it is really interesting to watch the two of them side by side and to see how Apple tries to do a better job of convincing you that this thing will be useful. And part of it is not overselling it. Part of it is just, look, you can just quickly ask your phone what the weather is and it tells you. And they also have a little emotional resonance part at the end of the Siri ad where they show oh, I don't know, a blind person using their phone, right? Like Apple always knows how to get you. And they show it actually being useful. And the interesting thing is they show Siri doing probably 80% of the same things that the Amazon Echo does, but it's in a 30-second commercial. And this Amazon Echo thing is 5 minutes long.
And in the Echo commercial, it's like, it's the center of everything. It's like this freak that's come into the house that they're all coming to see, and like some performing monkey.
The girl even says at one point, she goes, Amazon Echo, or no, I'm sorry. She says, Alexa has really become part of the family. Like, really? Is that really like, because, if you start saying that your phone has really become part of the family, you have some problems with your family, right? Or with you. One of the two. And yeah, it's so oversold, and it's like their whole lives revolve around this. It's just awful.
It's like awful. This is the family you don't want to be. So if you buy this product, you will become like them.
Yeah. Or like one of the selling points is the children can use it to passive aggressively make fun of each other when the daughter asks Alexa to define annoying. It's like, yeah, that's a real selling point there, Amazon. People are, I wish that I could turn over to a machine making fun of my sibling. That'd be great. I'd love to buy that. It's just, But anyway, all of this is why I think Amazon is like, I'm worried about you, Amazon. But, I'm going to keep buying all of my physical items from them because I don't like to go to stores and they ship stuff to my door. Like, they do that great. But man, their whole electronics ecosystem, it just seems like it is in terrible, terrible danger of whoever is running it and whoever is approving it.